Good time in the sunshine of San Diego.
Guess I've been working so hard, I forgot what it's like to be hardly working.
With your hosts, Annie Heilbrunn and Craig Elsten.
Ooh, doggy, we got a party now!
And featuring Braden Soprano. The good times start now. Here are your hosts, Annie and Elsten, on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
All right, let's get it going on a Friday morning and wrap up the week in a great way. Welcome back, everybody, to your new midday hang on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. This is Annie and Elsten. At least half of the namesake in place. Craig Elsten here. It's one of those days for Annie. There's going to be a few of them over the course of the next couple of weeks as her work with San Diego Sports Association, getting ready for the Salute to Champions on February 5th. She's a big part of this whole thing. I think she's actually assembling the stage today. And as such, that very well could not be true. But we'll keep coming up with the reasons why she's not here. Won't be here today. May check in at some point in the show. So it's myself and my faithful sidekick, Braden Soprano, along to take you through the next 4 hours until Gwen and Chris at 2 o'clock. Braden, good morning to you, my friend.
Good morning, Craig. Nice to get to Friday already. It seemed a lot quicker this week, but we had Monday off, so that makes a lot more sense. Tough loss last night for the USD women's basketball team. The Toreros lost the Pacific. That's took up a lot of my time last night, but ready to start the big weekend in sports and some big-time teams coming into town this weekend. The Gonzaga Bulldogs will be at the Jenny Craig Pavilion tomorrow night at 7 o'clock.
I know your buddy Jack Harnan. This has been his major point of emphasis. Big game, big broadcast, big moment. Gonzaga's coming to town.
Gonzaga. He just keeps telling everybody. You know what? January 20th. January 20th. We got everything ready to go for January 20th. And so he's going to have everything to be as perfect as possible. And I've already joked with him. I said, one thing goes wrong, and you're just going to have a Seinfeld or Curb Your Enthusiasm level explosion on everybody. I said, just wait. Diego the Torero's not going to show up, and Jack's going to be like, where's my Torero? Where's my Torero? Get the mic, the PA mic, start wreaking havoc. I said, make sure you get enough sleep tonight, Jack, and be ready to go for there might be some things that don't go our way on Saturday in terms of the broadcast. We just got to keep plugging through, though.
Now, I have to bring this up. As a San Diego sports fan, I feel like I'm rooting for Gonzaga in this game. No diss at all on the Toreros team, but if San Diego State needs Gonzaga's strength of schedule and their Ken Pom ranking and everything else to help elevate their path, I just kind of feel like San Diego State's where we got to put our chips. Maybe it'd be okay. Maybe it'd be all right if Gonzaga comes in and gets a dub on Saturday night.
I'm not going to make any comments on that, but I will say,
I said it for you.
If USD beats Gonzaga, that will be a major blow to the Aztecs, which knowing a lot of people over at USD would probably like, that they got that, kind of crosstown rivalry, if you will. But Gonzaga didn't do San Diego State any favors by losing at Santa Clara a couple of weeks ago. And I was hoping maybe Mark Few's game yesterday would get snowed out or weathered out or something, because they knew, I forgot who they played, but they won and Mark Few got win number 700. That would have been a nice talking point on the broadcast for tomorrow, but he just got it yesterday. So,
well, we got a lot of things coming up between here and 2 o'clock. And I feel like it's just our nature, Braden, that when Annie isn't here, it's like, well, let's just open up the cupboard. We've got plenty of stuff. We've got 4 hours to fill. Let's get through it all. And we've got a big show as a result today. Coming up later on the show, we're going to have the newly renamed Braden's Football segment. That'll be where we go through all of the divisional round games, and he's got bold predictions, and we'll think about, we're not going to be that show. We've already made this call. We're not going to be that show that's like, our pick'em segment is the key segment of the show, because whether I beat Braden or Braden beats me, nothing happened. At the end of the day, nothing actually happened. There was no contest.
Well, I wanted to do that, but Craig didn't want to put, he didn't want to put a lot of money on the line. So,
Well,
what's fine. He's got to pay for Catholic school. He's got a
Yes.
child. I don't have to worry about those things. I could be a little bit more aggressive on listening to Ryan Horvat's gambling picks than Craig. So we wanted to keep it calm, keep it relaxed, more of a fun banter back and forth.
See, I agree, and even in the chat and with what you said, for me, even with the need to pay for Catholic school, you can pay for that with gambling winnings. I mean, that's fine. It's just another path to revenue. If we actually were putting actual money on games, then I would be very interested in pick'em segments. Or if we, or head-to-head things or whatnot. But for bragging rights on the radio. Does anyone remember the 2017 fan champ or machine champ? Like, is there an ongoing blog somewhere that keeps all the results of all the sports talk radio's picks? I don't think so.
No, and the reason why nobody ever hears them is because they're usually wrong. Because if we were good at them, we would not be doing this job.
Yeah,
I love Ryan. I think he does a great job, honestly. But the biggest thing always when you talk about gambling and fantasy sports insiders, if they were good at what they did, they wouldn't be doing it. Now, would they?
They wouldn't be telling you.
No, exactly. You would know about them. The guys that are the betting experts, you don't know who they are because they're living in Malibu or some very nice place.
Indeed. But the best talkers, we find them and we put them on.
That's right.
For you. So Braden's football segment is coming up. We've been doing it all week, making this a regular thing on the show. It's the 12 o'clock sports fix. That will be a weekend edition, 12 o'clock sports fix. So at 12 o'clock today, high noon, halfway through the show, a chance to hit reset, capture all the major topics, even stuff that happens in the next 2 hours in the world of sports. And please, baseball, make something happen. Get me excited for something.
Baseball or the Padres?
Yes.
Annie wants the Padres to do something so you can stop doing trades. But Craig is for anything in baseball to happen.
At this point, I mean, last week we announced Jordan Hicks on the air, right?
Right.
That's like the last deal that's been made.
It has been.
A whole week. Nobody did nada.
No
passing nada.
Or they're once you get to like New Year, like the holidays, it goes into dark times of baseball moves, baseball transactions, free agent signings, trades, because everybody starts gearing up for spring training. And then like you get that little push again right before spring training. And then it's like, all right, either the player's going to panic and sign, or they're going to wait it out and wait for some injuries to happen and get the contract they want. I don't know how many Dallas Keuchels there will be. Remember when Dallas Keuchel and Craig Kimbrell decided to wait through the season to get their big deal? But
yeah,
we're in the lull times of nobody really has the upper hand and leverage, either the teams or the players in negotiations.
In fact, talking about this, I saw this tweet from Cespedes Family Barbecue today, and those boys were on with Ben and Woods all last season. That was a great segment I usually listen to on Mondays last year, I should say. And I think this tweet tells the entire story. Major League Baseball trade rumors, top 50 free agents unsigned on January 18th, 2023, Profar, Chafin, Waka. Jerkson, Profar, Andrew Chafin, and Michael Waka. 3 of the top 50 free agents were unsigned at this point, about a month before spring training. On January 18th, 2024, Major League Baseball trade rumor, top 50 free agents unsigned. Bellinger, Snell, Montgomery, Matt Chapman, Hader, Soler, J.D. Martinez, Hoskins, Stevenson, Clevenger, Aroldis Chapman, Lorenzen, Urshela, Rosario, Merrifield, Turner, Belt, Neris, Junis, Hendricks, Tim Anderson, and more. That's just a partial list. They ran out of, I guess they don't pay for the blue check. Oh, they did pay for the blue check. That was still the blue check limit.
I don't think you could blame them waiting for Shohei Ohtani anymore, because that's been signed, sealed, and delivered for a while, including, and remember the other rumors where it's like a lot of pitchers are going to wait for Yamamoto to sign and for Ohtani to sign to see what they could get. Both of those players, it's not like they signed yesterday. They've been signed for a while now. So there's no excuse on that part. I'm curious to see if just a lot of teams have reached their limit of spending too much money on the top echelon guys and are just going to roll with younger players to fill out their rosters.
Well, I know that's the case here, or at least it seems to be the case. one of my other baseball buddies, Joe Sheehan, has a great theory as to what's happening in the market. I agree with it. I'm going to present that in just a moment. Just setting up the show a little bit more. Again, 12 o'clock Sports Fix Weekend Edition coming up in a couple of hours. We will do Let's Make a Trade. Looking at you, AJ, in the YouTube camera. You can cancel this segment anytime, man. Any day. You can cancel it today. You have when do we have it in the rundown, Braden?
I've left it since it's been appointment listening.
12:45.
And so Annie can mentally prepare herself for these segments. We've put it at 12:45 every day the entire week. So I think we're going to continue to do that until he does make it. You already mentioned, it's going to be a staple of the show until AJ Preller makes a move.
Make a move. You have 2.5 hours. You have 2.5 hours, AJ. That is plenty of time.
And that's how much time Annie and I need to get prepared for the segment day in and day out.
Get the paperwork into the front office, alert the players, let them check in with their families, and by 12, an announcement can be made and Let's Make a Trade can be canceled. However, until then, it's our solemn sworn duty and obligation to continue to provide a little creative punch-up for the Padres front office day by day. Just an idea room. No ideas bad here in the creativity room for Let's Make a Trade.
I don't remember swearing into that. I don't remember swearing on a Bible.
You don't remember?
You must have done that. Did you make a deal with somebody on this?
It's like when
you're
you
trying
go
to fill your obligation.
My watch on the wall. It will only end
That's
at a
right.
particular time. I have made that promise. Oh, there. Be still my heart. There actually has been a move that was just announced moments before the show. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes, I saw it.
Matt Carpenter is a St. Louis Cardinal.
Good for Matt.
1-year deal.
Good for Matt. You know what? I mean, he wasn't that great here in San Diego, obviously. Matt Carpenter's been a great asset to my university, his university at TCU. He's one of the few TCU athletes that come back all the time and is a big supporter. He lives down the street from the baseball stadium, and he works out at the complex. He's obviously up there in age, so only the best for Matt Carpenter. The way it ended in St. Louis, obviously, he just really dipped fast. New York resurrected his career. Padres gave him a shot off of that, 100 at-bats that he got, which was kind of ridiculous. And he still gets an opportunity to play. Cardinals don't really have to pay him, right? Because the Padres and the Braves are paying him or whatever it is. So good. At least he gets to finish as a Cardinal. I would imagine if he can make it through this season, which is a big if, it will be his last. And good for him. He can get a nice little farewell tour. Hopefully he plays well enough where he could get a decent farewell tour, because he had a really nice major league career.
Yeah. Hey, happy for him. Ello and I were calling Aztecs baseball games when Matt Carpenter was at TCU.
Back in the Mountain West days.
Yeah, against Strasburg. I remember very well being annoyed by Matt Carpenter and his ability to slap the ball to left field or drive it into the gap, even as a very skinny college kid. He was extremely wiry and thin in college, and he wasn't really thick at any point in his career. But hey, good player. Probably it's a retirement deal. Yeah, maybe this is just show up at spring training, tip the cap, and retire. I'm sure because he's going to get paid by the Padres this year either way, and Atlanta picked up some of that money in the deal where we sent them Ray Kerr. They just bought Ray Kerr from us in exchange for taking Matt Carpenter's contract off of our books. He certainly has the wherewithal to tip his cap this year or to try and gut it out and figure something out. Joey Votto is a guy who is trying to gut it out. He certainly has the wherewithal to retire and at least be in an argument for a Hall of Fame position for his great career. He wants to play at age 40. Do we want to go down this road again in San Diego and give somebody a retirement deal? And Nelson Cruz, giving Matt Carpenter 2 years for a month in New York. My goodness. Wrapping things up in this segment by setting up the show. 1 o'clock hour I'm really excited about, Braden. we're going to start things off by welcoming to the show for the first but not the last time the hosts of Pods Above Replacement, which is a tremendous podcast that's been around for about a year. It's also a YouTube show. It's a video show. It is a part of the Padres Hot Tub Network, point of personal privilege, but I don't host it or really have anything to do with it. It's Rafi Cantor and John Percoda. And they, every show, do a straight statistical look at aspects of the San Diego Padres. Pods Above Replacement, wins above replacement. You can get the play on words there. John will be on with us at 1:00. They just put up a new show today. I got through all but like 15 minutes of it just prepping for the show because it was dropped in the morning. But it's all about the Padres bullpen in 2024. And in particular, something we'll talk about on the radio today, maybe a way to change usage that could make more out of less for the Padres in 2024. I think we could all agree right now, Braden, that Mike Shildt has less to work with in terms of talent play than what Bob Melvin had at this time in 2023. But if you can do a little bit more with what you have, you've got a chance to actually squeeze some more juice out of the orange this year.
Yeah, that's a win-win situation for Mike Shildt and the Padres. Obviously, we know the situation that's at hand. I mean, it's out there in the public and everybody knows it. I mean, you could ignore it as much as you want, but it's kind of show me time for a lot of members of that front office, and Mike Shildt signing on to an opportunity here to be a manager. Obviously, his contract wasn't very long. He knows that this might be a triumph for another type of manager spot. So, if you're Mike Shildt, you either get the Padres to the promised land and everything works out and everybody saves their jobs, everything's great, or you get a lot out of nothing and you might get another opportunity because he's been wanting to be a manager for a long time. So it's a win-win situation for both Mike Shildt and the San Diego Padres if this thing works out.
Well, we'll talk about it at 1:00. Stay tuned for that. That'll be followed by our weekly Friday segment, Netflix and Chill. And then we wrap up each show with Ask Us Anything, call-in segment, chance to talk about anything. Doesn't have to be sports. It's often better if it's not. And that'll wrap up the show. So we've got an exciting one for today. Fired up for the program today all the way through. Glad to have you with us. However, you are taking us in, whether it's on 97.3 FM terrestrial radio, you're in your car, it's in your ear one way or another. Maybe it's on the Odyssey app, streaming worldwide, or on our YouTube feed, which is up on the 97.3 The Fan page. We've got a great chat that's rolling on in there as well. We'll interact with it as we continue through the show. And when we come back, my buddy Joe Sheehan had an idea which really resonated with me in terms of why the baseball market is completely frozen. I think it has to do with the players who are on top and with a lot of teams that are recognizing one thing in particular about both of those players. We'll get to it right when we come back. Annie and Elsten underway with you on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. 1023 on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back. It's Annie and Elsten on a Friday. Craig, Elsten, Braden, Soprennant here with you. Annie has today, for her other obligations with San Diego Sports Association, getting ready for the big salute to champions coming up on February 5th. She'll be in and out of the show the next couple of weeks, all the way through kind of the day after. And then, hey, it'll be basically spring training at that point. And who knows, Braden? By that point, the Padres might even have like a completed 26-man roster. Maybe.
Hold my breath on that. Well, I mean, they have to play somebody, right? I mean, somebody has to be out there. It's going to be a lot of guys from minor league camp getting big league opportunities, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, right. They'll definitely have players.
Roster fillers.
Some of those guys are there right now. I mean, we've been hearing in fantasy camp that a lot of the prospects are already at camp. The guys like Merrill and Snelling, et cetera, are already there. That's cool. That's great.
But if you're Snelling and you're Merrill, right? You're paying attention to the roster always, because it's always kind of a numbers game. And you got to be sitting there going like, this is a great opportunity potentially for me. I think they're going to give me a chance. And whether or not they've already told them that or not is, only the Padres and those players know. But if you're a young guy, and this might be your opportunity to go up to the big leagues faster than you expected. And that's kind of the goal, right? I mean, you want to get to the big leagues as fast as possible, because any day in the big leagues is a good day. Get that service time clock started. You got to put out a good impression, right? You want to be out there early. You want to be working at it. I mean, even if it's just a dangle of the carrot to these guys, and you think that you can make a run at making this 26-man roster, and that window of opportunity might be there. It might be small, but it might be there. Get there early, get working, get on this major league club. I love it. I mean, that's the attitude you should have for a lot of these guys. And I think they know that going into this spring training, that if they play really well, they might get the opportunity to be on an opening day roster, put their toes on the white chalk line at Petco Park as Alex Miniak announces their name. And that's a cool thing for a lot of guys to make your debut on opening day. I mean, that's something that not a lot of players have the opportunity to do. And if that is right there in front of them for the taking, they're out there early getting after it. I love it.
It's almost undoubtedly true that at least one of these guys is going to find his way onto the opening day roster. Because the way things are going now, unless there's a massive melt in the free agent market, then most of the teams are sitting out right now. It's not just the Padres. And we've talked about the why for a long time here on Annie and Elsten. It's been something we've talked about all day. In fact, we had a great segment about it yesterday that Adam Klug broke out as a separate short on 97.3 The Fan's YouTube page. You can check that out. Hear Annie's explanation. I think one of the big hidden things about that discussion, Braden, was in the previous deal, Bally covered all the production costs of doing the games and 162 broadcasts and road satellite trucks and paying the entire staff and paying all the behind the scenes folks, the directors and the producers and the stage managers, etc. And the minute that deal ended, all that production cost carried over to the big league team. And that's why you saw a much shorter pregame show. Instead of a stage, you saw it in a folding chair on the sideline.
Or Scanlon just holding a microphone in front of first base.
Right, exactly. Just down on the field, because that's the space we can occupy, right? Just stand around in foul territory. And not a diss of it, but that was the case. Like, that stage belonged to Bally. MLB would have had to pay for it. And instead, they just, found spots that they could cut corners. I think Annie was one of those last year. At that point, she was working, then she wasn't, right? And now, with all of that mixed in, the subscription model, it's a difficult situation to make the money you used to, and because you don't have that type of financial certainty, it's tougher to start throwing that money into payroll. This is not just occurring here; it's occurring all around Major League Baseball. But something else is happening too, Braden. And that's what I wanted to bring up here briefly. Again, my buddy Joe Sheehan, he's going to come on next week. He's been battling back. Boy, people have been getting sick the last 3 weeks. Have you noticed that?
I noticed a lot more in December. I think that's when it really went through the lives that I know and are the different walks of life that I am physically a part of. But that's where I went down to. But it's making its way around. A lot of people getting under. It's the time people get sick. It's a tough time.
So he's planning to be on next week, but he wrote something in his newsletter, which you can subscribe to, joesheehan.com, that I thought was really, really interesting. And he called it the Snellinger principle. Because right now, the market is constipated with the players on top being Blake Snell and Cody Bellinger, right? Two players who had dynamite final seasons in their contracts. For Snell, the final year of a multi-year deal. For Bellinger, he went to the Cubs on a one-year make-good deal and made good with a really good season. But every front office that looks at these guys, and several guys in the category that are similar, have to ask a question. Do we really want to pay 5 or 7 or 8 years based on what happened last year, when if you just go back a year, in both players' cases, you can find a season that you absolutely would not pay that level of money in order to secure over a length of time. And this is Joe Sheehan's Snellinger principle, Braden. It is as follows. If a contract that you're giving out today would have looked ridiculous a year ago, it's probably ridiculous today.
I could believe that. Absolutely. I could totally believe like what they're putting down on some of these contracts. Some of these contracts are getting a little out of control. And it's a lot like, I feel like it's not just baseball. You see it in the media world. You see it in a lot of different aspects of life where like the top echelon are making just enormous amounts of money where everybody else behind them has to make almost nothing in comparison, and everything is obviously related. And then you run into some major problems when it comes to, either production or ratings or, you move down the list for the different areas of work. It just seems like a lot of places are just overpaying for the top talent where they can't live up to what the contract is that they are being asked to because they're getting overpaid.
And in particular in baseball, you're looking at, for example, Robbie Ray, right? The Mariners made a big commitment to Robbie Ray coming off of a Cy Young Award-winning season in Toronto, but the 3 years prior to that didn't look anything like a Cy Young Award winner. He went to Seattle. He had one mediocre season and then got hurt, and they wound up trading the contract. There's a lot of reasons, and I love Blake Snell. I've got a jersey of his hanging in my closet. There's a lot of reasons to look at Blake and go, okay, 2023 Cy Young year, but if you were putting him on the market after his 2022 year or after his 2021 year, what kind of contract do you think he would have earned even in today's market? And that's what's keeping the market frozen, because there's a giant disconnect between Blake Snell's 2023 and every season in between that and his American League Cy Young win with Tampa Bay. Every other one of those years, you wouldn't pay him like a number one. Last year, you pretty much would have to pay him as a number one. Same thing for Bellinger. 1 year before, the Dodgers didn't even want him on the team. They literally didn't tender him a contract.
Then he has one big year, and all of a sudden he needs to be paid like over $300 million. I mean, that's not even logical. I mean, to me, like if you're going to sign, again, you can't sign contracts for guys based on what they've done. You got to sign them on what they're going to do for your team. And now there's not a lot of teams that are organizations that do that. One that used to do it all the time was the Dodgers, but now they're just like throwing money all over the place. Like it doesn't even matter. And it's almost like they felt the pressure from everybody else in their fan base because they can't seem to win a World Series in a full season. But the teams that usually have the most success are not throwing out that type of money to some of these guys just because they had one good year and their agent is Scott Boras and, they won't sign for anything less than $280 million or $300 million. I mean, for what Blake Snell is asking for, I can't sign him for that. I don't care what team you are. It's not going to be worth it in the long run based on where he's at in his age, based on his history, based on his track record. So for some of these guys, I mean, the thing is though, is you keep waiting for them to have this moment, or the owners in the baseball teams as a moment of recollection of, we can't pay this and have the price to go down. but they haven't. And everybody is paid every single time for these players. And you're not seeing the prices go down. You're seeing them continue to rise and continue to get higher and continue to sway the market and really make guys that should be affordable not affordable for teams, like the San Diego Padres, who have spent a lot of money on some of their stars. And a lot of their stars contracts now are starting to look affordable based on what the market is, which is insane because of some of the deals that they put forward. The most notably, obviously, is Fernando Tatis Jr. That's going to be that's a steal.
We knew at the time it was probably a steal,
right?
And now it's definitely a steal. It's one of the best contracts in all of baseball. Maybe only Acuna has a better contract, team friendly.
Yeah, Ozzy Albies
and Ozzy Albies. In fact, the Braves, Anthopoulos is just put guys through the ringer in terms of sacrificing their future value in order to get present day money. He's done a great job of that. But I agree in general with what you're saying, Braden. I would just finish it off by saying that while that dynamic of people overpaying for players is undoubtedly true, I think we've found the moment in the market where it stops. And I think it's right here. It's how we have an entire week from Friday to Friday where the biggest signing in Major League Baseball is Matt Carpenter to a retirement contract in St. Louis, where Jordan Hicks last Friday is the previous biggest deal. And that was the one deal we talked about for a week. They are going all the way to the start of spring training, it looks like, to get over this Snellinger principle. And it extends below that to several other players in the market where you go, I'm not going to pay you just for this, that, or the other thing. You're not quite worth what the market says you're worth right now, and we don't want to pay that number. Okay, well, then you don't get the player. What are you going to be able to do with what you have? That's the question we'll try and talk about when it relates to the San Diego Padres in our next segment, wrapping up this first hour. And it's not even let's make a trade, Braden. We're saving that.
Got to save it. Well, you know what? We should since Annie's, not here, you should just on Monday or whenever she comes back, she's like, we haven't done it for the last 2 days because we were waiting for you. So we have to do we have to catch up and do 3 of those segments when you get here because we know how much you love that segment.
Test if she was listening.
Yes.
Right? Just check back. She's like, oh, I listened through all the shows. You guys did great. I go, oh, really? Well, we didn't do Let's Do a Trade the last 2 days.
Yeah, we saved it for you, Annie. Yeah. You didn't think you'd forget that.
She's like, oh, wow, you did? Like, nope, gotcha.
Gotcha. You know what? The first day she's back, the entire show is Let's Make a Trade.
Just
all trades.
Do we really have to? I don't want to do that.
What? We found it. It's almost like the whole we caught Craig smoking a cigarette as a 5-year-old, and so we made him smoke a pack, and now he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Oh yeah, one trade is enough, man. We're testing my creative boundaries as it is. Although today is a pretty straightforward attack trade for the San Diego Padres. That'll be coming up later. How about a free agent? Are we allowed to sign anybody? Are we allowed to sign somebody in the mid-tier? Can we get a good old NBA veterans mid-level exception to sign here in San Diego? I've got a name to run by y'all when we come back. Annie and Elsten, hour number 1 rolling here. Another gorgeous Friday morning as the fog burns off on San Diego's number 1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back, Annie and Elsten, your new midday hang. 97.3 The Fan. We are live on the Odyssey app. We are live on YouTube. We're live on the radio. Radio is still a big part of this audio medium, even though we've got the video to go with it every day on YouTube and continuing all day. We'll have Gwen and Chris in from 2 to 6 p.m., and then the Scraby Show will wrap things up 6 to 7. And, of course, keep the dial right there. There's no dial. Keep your button pressed.
How many people know what a dial is?
Yeah. Don't touch that dial. We still say that. There's no dial. There's a dial in the cards my mom and dad drove when I was a kid.
Don't touch that touch screen.
Exactly.
That doesn't flow as well.
Don't surf through your buttons. Yeah. We got to come up with a better phrase. But radio's been around all the way through this. Why hasn't someone come up with a better phrase?
Don't tell Alexa to change the channel.
See, and then Alexa goes, what? Change the channel?
Right.
What?
Hey, Alexa, play 97.3 The Fan.
There you go.
I just messed with everybody's audio systems.
So sorry for that. But we are here. We're here with you. We're here till 2 o'clock. Annie is off today, and she'll be back Tuesday on the show. She may drop in at some point, working on things. Nonetheless, we got a full show for you. We're just going full bore Padres, though, this first hour of the show, Braden. And we talked about it going to break. There are many holes to fill with this roster. You're probably counting on one rookie somewhere, somehow, whether it's pitching or hitting. You're counting on a young guy like Luis Camposano to grab catcher and hang on to it with two fists. But we got to get somebody somewhere, right? Like, there's still some money to spend. There's still so many holes to fill. You got to think free agency fills something, at least something. So here's a guy. We've done this segment before called Here's a Guy. Here's a guy, Brandon Belt. Brandon Belt is a free agent right now. The market is completely frozen. If you wait a couple weeks, maybe his number goes down. Brandon Belt is 35. He's obviously toward the tail end of his career, but he was a very successful player last season for the Toronto Blue Jays in a balanced role of just being a platoon player. 2 WAR in half a season, 339 at bats, 19 homers, but against righties, Braden, he was quite good. 256, 375 on base, 515 slugging. That's an 890 OPS. That's a 142 OPS plus. And that was in, like I said, 305 at bats. The Blue Jays were very careful not to bat Brandon Belt against lefties. If you use him right, he's still very effective.
He was ranked in the top 10 according to MLB Network. I mean, that's better than some of the other Padres players that we've had in the top 10. He ranked 8th. He's not even on a team right now. So still available readily for the Padres to potentially make a move. I'm all in favor of getting a real first baseman, and that's not to discredit Jake Cronenworth. I think Jake Cronenworth's a great baseball player, just he's not a first baseman. So we got to make some other moves in other spots, and you definitely need a DH-type first baseman. So I wouldn't mind Brandon Belt. I know he's up there in age, and the risk obviously you take is that he has a Matt Carpenter, Nelson Cruz type year, but I don't think that necessarily will be the case.
How much? Can we give Brandon Belt $10 million?
$10 million? I
Can
don't know. I don't know about that. How much would he have to spend? $27 million? And you want to put 10 on Brandon Belt?
You got to spend something somewhere, right?
Yeah, I know, but like, if you only have $27 million to work with, and you need 2 outfielders and a first baseman and probably another arm, especially a starting pitcher, I wouldn't put $10 million at the first baseman spot, because I do, even though I think that is on the list of needs that they obviously a list of needs for the Padres, I still think it's better in this situation to spend the money in the outfield and another pitch and another pitcher and have Jake Cronenworth play first than to give a guy like Brandon Belt $10 million.
He made 9.3 last year. I'm just adding a little inflation to the deal. The thing is, I feel like that 10 million, I'm just asking questions here, right? Just like so many talk shows that like to wander down a hole. I'm just asking some questions. But when you look at where the pitching free agent market is, $10 million gets you the worst pitcher in baseball. $10 million gets you Lance Lynn, allowing 44 home runs. $13 million gets you Luis Severino, who rated out as the American League's worst pitcher last year. $16 million gets you Frankie Montas, who didn't even pitch last year, that you're counting on maybe getting better, but you don't even know what his full status of recovery is because he hasn't had another major league season. So right now, the free agent pitching market, Sean Manaea got $28 million over 2 years with an opt-out. He hasn't been good in a while. He was okay with the Giants last year. Belt would actually be good. Gives you the opportunity to take Cronenworth off first base as a mandatory position and gives you a designated hitter for the days that you want a lefty up and add a little bit more balance to a lineup that's going to be extremely right-handed. That's the argument for Brandon Belt. The argument against is he's 35. And like you said, $10 million. We could chop that up and have two really subpar outfielders for the Padres. We can get Raimel Tapia and Jurickson Profar for that money and maybe have a little bit left over.
Yeah, you're not in a position to give a guy like Brandon Belt $10 million at this point in time because of all the other money you spent. You're better off with Jake Cronenworth playing first base because you're giving him $12 million to play first base, and to have $10 million and $12 million, either platoon or, like you mentioned, have Brandon Belt not face left-handers. That's a lot of money to be spent on a guy that's not going to be playing every single day when you're a team that obviously is trying to balance the books right now and trying to find different spots where you don't need to use young guys. I mean, it's starting to look like I'd rather just give a young guy an opportunity, even though I'm against rushing potential top top prospects for the Padres. I would rather, see some young player come up and be able to be that guy, because I don't think 10 million is the way to go. And, the more you look at these free agents, and we talked about it, you asked it going into break, are we allowed to sign free agents?
Right.
I think the question has been answered. I mean, I don't think the Padres are in such a situation where they can. Now, that being said, I mean, a guy like, and here's the deal, like at this point in time, there's going to be knocks and risks and problems with everybody that's left on the market.
100%.
So
everyone's got
perfect.
their words.
There's not a perfect player left because all of those guys are gone. So it's either going to be age, something behind the scenes, clubhouse, whatever it may be. But I would rather spend $16 million on Jorge Soler, who's going to be a starter every day, than $10 million on Brandon Belt, because you can roll with Cronenworth at first base. You get another outfielder, that could also DH. I think it's more bang for your buck with a guy like Jorge Soler, even though he's more expensive, and that almost eliminates more than half of what your budget is. And then, or you can load up on a couple of guys, but those guys are like, Adam Duvall's expected to get $8 million according to Fangraphs, and Tommy Pham. And we've been down the Tommy Pham thing before, and I don't think that relationship is repairable in general. So you miss out on a guy like that.
No, Tommy Pham will only play against the Padres the rest of his career.
Whit Merrifield, a couple of winter meetings ago, when he was a part of the Royals, the Padres had conversations about trading for him, but that was when he wasn't 35 years old. He loses his luster a little bit, and he's expected to get, about $8 million. I mean, you could bring back, maybe bring back a Travis Jankowski, but, do you really want to see him back in a Padres uniform, even though he might be serviceable? I mean, Jock Peterson's up there in age too. I wouldn't mind Jock Peterson, but, again, that's about half your budget on one single player. So if you're going to sign a free agent, you're going to have to make a trade somewhere else to either free up money or facilitate some starting pitching. So that's where they're at. And that's probably a big reason why the Padres aren't making any moves right now.
Let me give you an example of negative online behavior and the way not to contribute to a conversation is to take every name that we bring up and say, are you an idiot? Because you brought this guy up and he's terrible. We're talking about the 2024 San Diego Padres right now, trying to figure out any possible way to improve this roster. And what is the message, Braden, of this segment? We can't afford anybody. So when we talk about Raimel Tapia and Jurickson Profar, if you're in the audience or in the chat and you think that I actually think that's a World Series outfield, please hear me clearly right now. I do not think that's a World Series winning outfield. Okay?
Don't be dumb. Just don't be dumb. I mean, understand the context of the situation. Obviously, I would much rather have Cody Bellinger out there. But you know what? I'd also like to live in Del Mar on a beach and not have to pay for it. You know, I'd love to do a lot of things. But
I'd love all the players to sign on our team for $2 million a year. I'd love for every player to say, I just want to play for the Padres because I want them to win. So I'm going to sign a $4 million contract when I'm really worth $150 million. I wish Blake Snell would come back to us for the major league minimum. But none of those things are going to happen. Okay? So that's why we're poking around into the corners and into the bins that maybe we don't want to poke our fingers into, looking for the values that are possible out there. Because guess what? Somebody's going to be on this team. And if it's all AA kids, it's a problem.
You know what, Craig? I don't know why I didn't think about this before. I'm so glad our chat is so intelligent. Look, I think the Padres should sign Jordan Montgomery, Cody I didn't even know they were still available, Craig. Let's sign Montgomery, Bellinger, Snell, and then we could probably get JD Martinez to add and sign Jorge Soler. We're set. We're ready to go.
No problems at all. Okay.
I'll take it out of the bank of Craig Elsten. Thank you very much. Thanks for the check.
So delightful. So delightful. To talk about, please give us a deal. Give us a signing. Give us something.
I need Wayne Brady to do the let's make a deal.
Major League Baseball spring training starts the second week of February. February 11th, the Padres will have pitchers and catchers in. Many of them will be there well before. February 16th is the full squad report date. Today is January 19th. We got one outfielder. Two if you want to count as Okar. We got Sugar and Tatis playing left center and right center right now. So I think we've got some holes to fill, and I think we got to figure out some ways to do it. The rest of baseball moves at pace. Did the Padres miss an opportunity at the trade deadline last year? Appears the answer is now an emphatic yes, thanks to some reporting out of Houston. We'll talk about that in our second hour. We're going to get to Braden's football segment coming up soon as well. Get you completely locked in on all of the action in the divisional round, heading toward the 12 o'clock sports fix coming up at the midway point of the show. It's Annie and Elsten, 1 hour down, 3 still to run here on San Diego's #1 sports station. It's 97.3 The Fan. Back with you for hour number 2. Welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. It's Annie and Elsten, your new midday hang on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We're holding down the fort without Annie this morning. It's the end of the week, man. What time is it? Don't even know. A little bit lost. No, just kidding. Craig and Braden here with you. When Annie leaves, I fall apart, man.
Right here? It's all right. Annie doesn't see this either. It's right in front of her. That's why I put it on the YouTube chat so I can monitor the clock. Or do I have eyes in the back of my head? Never know. Always watching, Craig. Always watching.
Now we're thrilled. Annie's off working for San Diego Sports Association today. I'd love to have her check in. I don't think she will. I think she told us today was like a big all-day affair.
Today was a super busy day.
Yeah.
And then I think Monday was a somewhat busy but could make it happen day. And then when's the event date?
February 5th.
Okay.
February 5th. So closer we get to that, we're going to get some great guests coming up for the Salute to Champions event on this show. I'm very much looking forward to that. And Annie will be in and out as she can be, and we're going to hold down the fort. And we thank you for being with a young show as it continues to grow and evolve here, wrapping up our second full week and third week overall here on 97.3 The Fan. It's been a blast to be here. It's been a blast to start to spread our wings. We know it's a different show. We know it's a show with intentionality to be a little bit different than what was there before, and it takes time to recycle and cycle through. And I think we've been doing all right for the first couple of weeks so far. So we're thrilled to have everybody who's been with us along the way, not only listening on 97.3 The Fan, but checking in on the Odyssey app, listening back through podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on whatever platform that you happen to utilize on your phone. You can go there, search for Annie and Elsten, and find the show segmented, broken into hours, full shows, interviews split off, key segments split off, as well as here on our YouTube page, 97.3 The Fan. All of that exists. Ben and Woods, ourselves, Gwen and Chris, the Scraby Show, all live here on the page. However, wherever you are enjoying the show, we are glad that you are here with us. First hour, we talked a lot of baseball, talked a lot of Padres, and it's just a tough spot, man. You want to talk about jumping a new show in a content mill that has no content in it. There's nothing to mill. Literally one signing the entire week in Major League Baseball so far, and it's Matt Carpenter on a retirement deal in St. Louis.
It's these are the toughest 2 months in San Diego sports radio just because of, not having an NFL team or an NBA team or an NHL team. And, there's like so much college basketball you could talk about, obviously. And our main product being the flagship of the Padres is the San Diego Padres. And this is kind of the 2 down months of baseball season, because even like at the end, like in October, regardless of the Padres are still in it, you can still talk about playoff baseball. And then in November, you kind of build up to the winter meetings in December, and there's usually deals being made, and you still have the fresh, reactions to the season, whether it be positive or negative. That usually carries for about a month. And you know what? We've been spoiled the last couple of years, Craig, with wheeling and dealing AJ Preller making a huge move during the offseason.
Yes.
Multiple huge moves.
Flurries.
Constantly keeping the Padres in the media spotlight with hirings of managers and firings and big free agent signings and trades. And I mean, every year has been something different for the Padres when it comes to some major news story and being the forefront of the news. And this year it's just been a little bit more quiet based on everything. I mean, the least amount of press conferences I've worked during this time of year. It's usually a big signing with, Manny Machado a couple of years ago, and Hosmer had one, and, bringing in Bogarts and, Fernando Tatis Jr. signing his extension, and so much to talk about when it came to the Padres. And right now it's been a couple of weeks of just crickets and nothing going on. So it is very difficult, always difficult. I mean, I kind of envy, other markets that have every sport in the world where it's just constant news and action all the time. And one team's going to do something either really, really insane in a good way or really dumb in a bad way. And you can constantly be talking about it. But I will say this, it makes you a lot better of a sports talk show host.
Oh, yeah.
When you don't have a lot to talk about. And I don't like talking about 2020 all too much. That was a miserable time for all of us, but made me a lot better as a broadcaster of being able to carry conversations and being entertaining. And we're doing that right now. I mean, it's easy to talk about the big story and to talk about the big NFL game and to do the big mainstream things. You make your money as a broadcaster. I was told this as a very young broadcaster. I still am.
10-1 in the 7th. That's where you're making your money.
But you make your exactly. You make your money when there's not news. That's how you mold yourself into a good broadcaster. So Craig, Annie, and I, as difficult as it may be,
hey,
this is making us better in the long run, trying to make it as entertaining as possible. I think a lot of people have had a good time with us the last 2 weeks.
Listen, we've literally created a trade every day on this show.
You got a mouse in your pocket, dude? You've made a trade. I don't want to be associated with that segment. I don't.
The royal we.
Again, here's Craig. I said it yesterday. He only long teases one thing, and it's the let's
trade.
Make a trade.
Point being, we're offering free agent opportunities. We're trying to think through this.
Don't try to cover your ass. We know what you're up to right now.
Coming up at 1:00, we're bringing on pods above replacement. We're literally going to present a theory of usage that could add 2.5 wins and round up 3 wins to the Padres this year. Guess what? 3 extra wins would have done for the Padres last year. Would have made him the 6th seed.
That's right. Would have been a first round exit in the postseason. That's what it would have been. I don't want to be negative. You never know in the playoffs. Never know in the playoffs. But
what do the Diamondbacks do?
Yeah, but not having Yu Darvish or Joe Musgrove was going to be a tough. Although
Cauldron.
I was told that Yu Darvish was getting himself ready to pitch in the playoffs if that opportunity presented itself. So
I'm sure Joe Musgrove would have spent
absolutely.
a week in a hyperbaric chamber.
I'm sure he would go out there missing his left leg if he needed to, and go out there and pitch for his hometown. That's a guy that I love being able to watch Joe play for his hometown team. And we've talked about this this station does all the time. He is such a pros pro. He totally understands the market because he grew up here. And he's one of the only Padres that is always accessible to every media outlet, not just the flagship, right? I mean, he is available to everybody and spreads the love because he knows, that's what's best for this town. That's what I love seeing out of him. And I think a lot of us locals and born and raised San Diegans, get to live a little bit of that dream of playing for your hometown club, watching Joe represent the San Diego on his chest every time they go on the road and every time he's got Padres across his chest at home. It's great.
Hey, we need you and we need Joe to both be great this year. And I'm hopeful they can both put up an above average season for each one of their careers. And if they do that, the Padres are going to be in a pretty good spot. They'll have a good foundation upon which they can begin to build a winning year. Now, interesting story in The Athletic yesterday, and Ken Rosenthal, which was a Padre fan favorite, going through this, but apparently the Astros are targeting Josh Hader in free agency in the frozen free agent market. They may be able to get out the flamethrower to sign a flamethrower and have Josh Hader come to the Astros. What was interesting in there, and a comment from Jim Crane of the Astros in that story, Braden, was that at the deadline last year, Houston was pursuing not just Josh Hader from the Padres, but Blake Snell as well, and looking for the package deal, the kind of thing that, quite frankly, we were talking about on sports talk radio, right? At the time, it's like, what do? Do you fish or cut bait? Do you go for it? Do you go all in? Do you try and make a trade to get even better? Or do you recognize that we're probably not going to make the playoffs this year and make a deal that makes 2024 a lot easier to solve? I think we all know there's no reason to get upset or emotional or anything about the decision the Padres made. They made a decision for an owner who didn't have a lot longer left on earth. And the Padres were going to go for the win this year in 2023, no matter what. But it does kind of at least put a little tinge in you, doesn't it? To know that there was that deal out there waiting to be made.
I think so, but you can't view it hindsight. You can't view it now with more clarity and go back and go like, I can't believe that they did this because, and I've seen a lot of Padres fans do that. I was in favor of what they decided to do. And unfortunately for the Padres in that situation, it wasn't just the situation with Peter Seidler. It was the way that the way the team was constructed, the way the contracts were put in place. At this point, in the plan, they couldn't pull the parachute. They couldn't pull the plug. They couldn't go up there and go, I've hit 3 legs of my parlay, but I'm not certain about leg 4. I'm going to cash out. They were not in a position to do that. And so I still think that move at the time was the best move the Padres could make because you were still in the playoff hunt. And I think if you pull the plug on it to worry about the future, I think it's a quitter's mentality. I think you're saying to the fan base, look, we're not going to compete. We're just going to give up. And we'll try our best next year. They don't have the ability to do that anymore with the stars that they have signed under contract. You can't just punt on a Manny Machado prime year, a Xander Bogaerts prime year, a Yu Darvish year as he's up there in age, getting rid of an opportunity at the time for Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. on the same team. You could not physically do that. And I know it didn't work out. So it's easy just to say they screwed up, they messed up. This is a terrible move. But you know what? It's always easy to say that until your product is on the field. I know we get paid to do those things, but all the fans that always say it's so like, I would have done this, I would have done that. You can't make those claims after what the events transpired to be, even though it might have worked in your favor. So I disagree with the whole, like, we should have done this, we should have done that. You had a team, you had a pitching staff that was capable of making the playoffs. You had a roster that was capable of doing it. You really couldn't give up on your top prospects to try to bring in big pieces, which I'm glad they didn't do that. But at the same time, you couldn't afford to just punt on the rest of the season and just be like, we're going to be ready for 2024 because we've seen it a lot. I mean, think about the top prospects the Padres had. This was tweeted out a couple of yesterday, actually, about like 2018 San Diego Padres top prospect list. That was one of the best in baseball. You look at that list, you're like, I want more of these guys. I mean, it's such a crapshoot on what you're going to get out of some of these players, especially rentals. So at the time, I think it was the good move, and I still think it was the wise decision. Did it work out? No, but you can't say now because it didn't work that they were foolish for making that move. You can't do that.
Braden, I can't disagree. And I even remember being asked directly by Ben and Woods the week before the deadline, what do you think the Padres will do? What do you think the Padres should do? And what I thought they should do is what they did, make targeted incremental improvements to try and bring up a bottom of the roster that was way, way, way below average and try to just get to average in some spots and see if that would be enough to win you some games. Unfortunately, G-Man Choi, I think, got 2 hits. Right?
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, it didn't work out. And you know what? That happens. There's times where it doesn't work out. But based on what their situation was, that's the type of player that they could go get. And it was like either G-Man Choi is going to light it up and look like G-Man Choi, the Rays playing at Petco Park during the COVID playoffs, or he's going to be what he was this year. And just, he just wasn't good and he wasn't healthy. And he only had like a limited number of at-bats when they acquired him. But I would rather do that and get G-Man Choi. I mean, Rich Hill to me, I think was like a throw-in arm. I honestly cannot believe that the Padres actually physically wanted him, but I could see how that was kind of a throw-in arm.
Just like, why?
I mean, like, because people are all like, why did they trade for this guy? I'm like, no. They traded for G-Man Choi. I'm sure that they had to take Rich Hill at this point in time. Not to say he had a big contract, but I think that guy was a throw-in. But I would rather do that with him and Cooper and, whoever else they picked up at the trade deadline.
Scott Barlow was good.
Scott Barlow, right? He was a solid arm. Then trading Merrill and trading Snelling and trading Pauly and like trading all of your top prospects again after you did it the year before to go get, maybe a rental guy or maybe another player. There wasn't a lot available at the time either. It wasn't like major players available that was going to drastically help this team. So, I thought the best move was either do nothing if you're the Padres or maybe acquire a couple of side guys that might be able to give you a spark. And that's what they did. Didn't work out. And it's unfortunate that the 2023 season was a major disappointment.
Cannot wait to put it in the rearview mirror. Can't wait to have a team that we can get excited about at spring training. There's still plenty of things to get excited about for the Padres in 2024, but they're all the things that we knew were there before. Right now, it's Can Fernando Tatis Jr. have that second year back season like Acuna did, coming back from his injury? And will we see an MVP level performance? How will Manny Machado bounce back? Are we going to get that Xander Bogaerts year that we saw in Boston over and over again? What new young players are going to break? Can Luis Campusano be an everyday 280 plus hitter, spraying line drives around and really helping? Because I did see one message in the chat that I really agreed with from Irie FanGeek. The Nola Grisham combo really killed us. It became the other team's strategy to load the bases to get to those two. And when you talk about the Padres' struggles last year with runners in scoring position, I think that's half of exactly right. It was 4-5 and it was 8-9. For almost all the season, two of the Padres who struggled the most with runners in scoring position were Xander Bogaerts and Jake Cronenworth, and they batted 4-5 in the orders so that you got those three. You had Kim, you had Tatis, you had Machado, you had all this buzz and energy and activity in the top third of your order, and then 4-5, pop out, ground out, pop out. And then you had some success, 6-7. Let's just get to Nola and Grisham. We can cash out the inning there. And it worked. It worked almost all the time last year. So replacing players who were actively negative, obviously you need to see Cronenworth bounce back. You need to see Bogaerts have a more representative year with runners in scoring position, because those guys right now are still going to be in the middle of your lineup. But just there's still plenty of stuff to get excited about. It's just a lot of it is things we already know. All the unknowns on this roster remain completely unknown.
Well, here's the other thing too. And obviously, we want a big move just in the media, just so we could talk about it, right? But the reality is, and this has been the problem for the Padres the last 4 or 5 years, at least since I've been on air on the Padres flagship, all of their needs have not been addressed during the offseason, and it still is a need by the time the trade deadline rolls around, and it's a last-minute ditch effort to try to fill their needs at the trade deadline. And they bring in guys that, did not spend time with it. And that's a gelling part too. Not every trade works out. Look at the Manny Machado trade to the Dodgers, right? A guy that just doesn't fit the Dodgers. Just the way that we've talked about this before. He's just not a Dodger. Just the way that they do things compared to the way he does things. That's why he's such a good fit down here in San Diego. Sometimes that's also a thing. You have to worry about the clubhouse, and you can plug in place and get these hired guns, but that doesn't mean it's going to work out. And last offseason, center field was a problem because everybody knew that Trent Grisham was a Gold Glove center fielder, but he had a miserable time at the plate in 2022. But he had a good series against the Mets, and everybody just forgot about him again. It's like, oh, look, he's back. Everything's great. He had a good series against the Mets. It was great. It's some home runs. He took Max Scherzer deep. He had that spark. You're like, this is the guy that they've been waiting for. And then against the Dodgers, it was okay. And then he was non-existent against the Phillies. But everybody remembered the home run in the playoffs against the New York Mets and the good series that he had. And it was put on the wayside, especially with us fans and us media members. Like, oh, look, Trent Grisham's back.
Right. And
then they try to... Then you got a problem when you get to the season and there's nobody available unless it's going to be a high ticket item, right? Like Cody Bellinger, but the Cubs were in it all of a sudden, so they weren't going to trade him anyway. And now you had a major problem on your hands. The thing that just is the most infuriating thing about 2023, and I know you mentioned we don't want to talk about this anymore.
I really don't.
I don't either. But it's so unfortunate that the starting rotation that the Padres had didn't go to the postseason, because the starting pitching that they had last year, if that was on the 2022 team, and I don't want to play what ifs, but that was the rotation you were looking for in Philadelphia, because instead of Sean Manaea and Mike Clevenger pitching in very important games in the Dodgers series and in the Phillies series, you would have had Waka or Lugo coming up to pitch for the Padres, and a Blake Snell and a Cy Young year. They're probably in the World Series. They addressed the starting rotation, and unfortunately putting all their eggs in 4 players didn't pan out. And I think a lot of it too, I know we got to get to a break. We mentioned the Nola Grisham one too. I almost feel like they will never admit it. I almost feel like that just put way more pressure on the top 4 to go, we got to make everything happen. We got to make everything happen.
Absolutely. You need synergy, right? What's on Mike Schiltz t-shirts? The first point is together. That's the first thing. The fourth thing is offense executes. 1 and 4 never happened for the Padres. The pitchers threw strikes. The defense made the plays. Those are points 2 and 3, but the lineup wasn't together. It was fractured bits, and the guys in the middle of the order had unfortunate RISP years. The guys at the bottom of the order couldn't hit at all. And when that happened, it compounded. You could have carried Trent Grisham just fine on many good lineups, but you couldn't have Nola above him and a dysfunctional DH slot above that. It became a black hole of 3 spots that pitchers could easily walk their way through. I have to agree with Elisa in the chat. We are trauma bonding right now.
Trauma bonding. That's
Braden,
all of us Padre fans.
Yeah, it's a little trauma bonding.
We're gonna crack.
Cleansing.
We're gonna crack open Craig's old football love that he has, that he is trying to ignore, and we will trauma bond over the Chargers at a different time. I know Annie brought it up. I'm going to bring it up now. He's hiding something from us, and we'll trauma bond together on that as well.
Every time we bring up the Chargers, I get mad and sad.
Look at his face. He's like half his face has a tear rolling down. The other half looks like he wants to destroy the computer in front of him.
Oh my gosh. Maybe the guy we had at first base is the guy we should have at first base this year too, despite how he did last year. That's next on Annie and Elsten, right here on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Tune in to Kickoff with Boomer Esiason and Mike Valenti. Every week, Boomer and Valenti preview the entire slate of NFL games, analysis from Boomer, picks from Mike, the biggest stories in the league packed into an hour tonight at 7 o'clock here on 97.3 The Fan and always live on the free Odyssey app, presented nationally by Casamigos Tequila. Casamigos, brought to you by those who drink it, and by Lowe's. Lowe's knows home improvement. It's always cool when you've got the same word back to back.
Yes.
In a liner?
Lowe's.
Lowe's. That was an air check tip I got as a junior in high school. I went to the Roy Engelbrecht Sports Broadcaster Camp, which was a thing at Loyola Marymount University.
They still got some of those.
I'm not sure if it's still going on.
I don't know if it's there, but I know they have other ones. They do have broadcaster camps nowadays.
At the time, it was really cool, Braden, because at the time, the NBA Summer League played at Loyola Marymount.
Oh, that's cool.
So, for example, the year I went, it was Vlade Divac was in the Summer League. I think David Robinson actually played a game or two in the Summer League that year.
Admiral.
It was a really cool event. Not for nothing, Hank Gathers was actually at the class. He was at the camp. Hank Gathers, who was a star at Loyola Marymount, and the previous year had led the NCAA in scoring and rebounding in the same year, was already practicing for his future career as a broadcaster. Hank Gathers' life came to a tragic end the very next year on the court for Loyola Marymount. He collapsed and died on the court. And that was the year that, led by Bo Kimball, Loyola Marymount made it all the way to the Elite Eight. So little something in there, but that was a winding way to get you to the double negative. Bob Miller once said, you never, as a play-by-play guy, want to have the name twice in a row in your call. So Granato to Robitaille, back to Granato, over to Gretzky. You want to cut out one of those names. Little play-by-play tip.
I like that. I like to implement that as well, because then it feels like you're repetitive anyway, right? And it just doesn't. The flow's not as good on that.
It's a huge little thing. When you do it, you'll find out how huge it is, because that's where you can put an adjective or a verb.
That's right.
As opposed to that second, you can describe the pass, the next pass, shovels it, feathers it, right? Slides along, headman pass. You can use that instead of saying Granato. Childs, Farber. Happens all the time.
Sorry to close the studio door. The 94.9 guys do their craft beer show on Fridays.
Ooh.
And they were all excited.
That?
They were all excited about it.
Can we implement that?
The craft beer show?
Yes.
I don't know if
Fridays?
you could steal that from Jeremy over at 94.9. I'm sure
Can we
you
just
could
steal their beer?
Well, they usually save some for Tony. But you're gonna have to get on the pecking order there.
We're gonna have to develop some relationships,
yeah,
right?
They got some of the best breweries in town that rolled through there.
I'm getting motivated.
They sit there and they drink during their show. And
yes.
Taste all the beer. And,
yes, and
yeah.
You want to do it? I'm all about this.
Craig's like, can I do a show on 94.9 at some point?
Absolutely. And or 90. It feels like it's an FM thing.
That's
to
right.
have Craft Beer Friday. So if we'd like to start implementing that, if anyone in town in any of our great breweries would like to be a part of a Craft Beer Friday on Annie and Elsten, at least Elsten and Braden are all about it. And beer is plant-based, so I would assume that Annie would be okay with it too.
Well, you could have craft beer, Netflix, and chill. So you could sit there and stir your craft beer,
100%.
Sip it, little sipping, and telling us what's going on in the streaming.
All right, I want to make this quick because I'm going to give a lot of time for Braden's football segment, which is coming up after the break. 12 o'clock, we'll have our 12 o'clock sports fix weekend edition. We will get you completely set up with the big scores from yesterday, but for all the games, for all the teams coming up, for all our local teams.
Got a lot of rivalries in high school basketball tonight.
Is that right?
I try to limit the three biggest games. I'm not going to break them down, but just let you know where they're at. Got a lot of ranked matchups tonight and a lot of rivalries throughout the county. So it's a nice little rivalry weekend for most of the county in men's basketball, boys basketball.
All of that coming up just in the next two segments of Annie and Elsten. But we just talked a lot. Really, honestly, we've devoted the first 90 minutes of the show to just trying to find some marginal improvement for the San Diego Padres. We bandied about Brandon Belt. Bandied about Brandon Belt is a
Nice.
fun
That was
phrase.
fun. Francisco.
Felt
That's fun to
bouncy.
say.
I was bouncing through saying that, bouncing through bandying about.
Brandon Belt.
Brandon Belt. We talked about that. We are going to more talk about possible trades. We talked about how limited free agent options are, the bottom of the barrel that we are scraping. Might we actually be in the right place, though, with one guy? I just want to bring this up briefly, but it was mentioned pretty extensively over the last 10 minutes in the chat. You actually look, I know he was terrible for the Padres when they traded for him. He was awful. He got 2 hits. He got 2 lousy hits, and a few more hits would have gone a long way. But in his career, Ji-Man Choi against right-handers is pretty good. He's got a career 122 WRC plus. In other words, he's about 22% better than the average player against righties. Just last year, 242, 349 on base, 452 slugging. And you could pretty much get him for nothing. I think, Braden, you could honestly get Ji-Man Choi at this point for a couple $1 million.
Ji-Man Choi, Jurickson Profar. There we go. Now
we're cooking.
we're saving the $10 million that we're going to spend on Brandon Belt, getting some guys, need some veterans.
He is absolutely worth the major league minimum, Jake Waters.
Jake called me Brandon earlier, so he's in the doghouse. Do I need to ban him?
No, not yet.
Mute
not yet.
him.
No,
him.
he
Put him
said-
in, I could put him in timeout. Jake, be careful. You call me Brandon again, I'll put you in timeout.
That's fair. That's fair. Hey, guys, we need to wrap our heads around something in Padre land right now, okay? AJ, you can change this. You can change this with decisions. Ownership, you can change this with decisions. Right now, the way things are going, we need to start wrapping our heads around less desirable alternatives. We need to start thinking about the squinting and going, maybe that could work, and accepting that that's kind of the level. I don't think you're going to get psyched. At this point, people are like, Brandon Belt, oh, come on, that breaks the bank. Brandon Belt, it's a mid-level player. Ji-Man Choi could hang on for half a season until Nathan Mortarella is ready to take over the position, potentially, or somebody else, Graham Pauley. Think about placeholders. It doesn't sound sexy. It's not exciting. It's not talk radio super fodder, okay? But if you get some guys who could play half a season for nothing, and then you get those minor leaguers the critical opportunity to develop, maybe they can contribute in 2024. If you just say, we're not going to sign any of these guys because, I don't like the cut of their jib. And, hey, I just want to use our fun. Then you're asking players who have never been above just Double-A for a splash to become major league ball players in April. And if they fail, what's your fallback then? Where do you fall from there? You have optionality to fall back from placeholders. If you start by over-promoting kids from single and Double-A into the major leagues, and then you see them struggle and fail, your fallback is to the guys you have at Triple-A behind that. And that is no way to run a winning program. Ji-Man Choi is a little better than you think. He was terrible here in 2 months. I know. Awful. It's a little better than you think. A little better than you think is maybe the way we have to start thinking to get to spring training opening and having a roster of players instead of a roster of kids. Just a thought. Braden's football segment is next. If you are in for the divisional round, if you are excited, if you want some bold predictions, if you would love to hear the beautiful music of NFL films, it's all coming up.
It's hard not to like that music. It's good stuff.
Look, it's objectively the best stuff ever.
I do like.
Yes! Basketball, give me the basketball.
That was good.
Because I'm gonna dunk it.
The NHL one's pretty good too.
Yeah, that's all right.
Oh, you're not as excited about the hockey.
No. Come on.
I like
That
that
SNL sketch is one of the best sketches of all
Oh,
time.
yeah, he's playing on the piano.
And it's Tim Robinson from
Yeah.
I think you should leave on Netflix. And it was like his 1 year on staff or 1 year in front of the camera. And it's literally one of my favorites of all time. Basketball. Basketball. Give me the ball because I'm gonna dunk it. Okay. One more time.
I'll save it.
Absolutely love it. Braden's football segment next. Danny and Elsten, Seagull's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. All right, I think we can just put the Padres aside for potentially not the rest of the show, but at least for a little while, at least for a short little while. We got so in-depth, Braden, over the course of the last hour and a half that I noted in the YouTube chat, Yvette says, I just want to see the Padres win a World Series before I kick the bucket, but I'm beginning to think it's never going to happen. And the problem is, Yvette's 15. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know how old she is.
Yeah, that would be a major problem.
I mean, if it's that dark, in here, let's brighten things up a little bit. Let's talk about the pigskin. Let's talk about the oblong ball. It's time for Braden's football segment, American football segment. We're going to talk about the NFL divisional rounds, Braden, and I am ready. Are you ready?
I am ready to go. We only have 4 games this weekend. The next weekend we'll only have 2 games and then a Pro Bowl, and then the Super Bowl will be here before you know it. So it's getting down to the nitty-gritty in the National Football League. Game 1, all the games will be heard on our stations. We'll start at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time as the Houston Texans got off a big blowout victory of the Cleveland Browns. We'll take on the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Baltimore Ravens. One frustrating postseason streak will come to an end. Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson, 0-2 in the divisional round, throwing one touchdown pass and 3 picks in his career. Texans are 0-4 in the divisional round, losing by an average of 14.5 points. Let's get to the bold prediction. Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud will throw for over 300 yards, becoming the first quarterback to achieve that feat against the Ravens since Tom Brady did it for 325 yards on October 27th, 2022. The spread is 9.5 in favor of the Ravens. Your pick of the game and buy or sell on the bold prediction.
So I feel like you have to go with the Ravens here. At home. We talked yesterday with our Odyssey insider that the winds aren't expected to be quite as bad in Baltimore as they were originally predicting. If I was actually going to bet anything on this, I'll stick with what I said yesterday. I would bet the over, which is currently at 43.5, and I would lay off the point spread. If I'm forced to select, which I am in this circumstance, I would pick the Ravens and keep the 9.5 points, and I would sell as a result C.J. Stroud throwing for over 300 yards, because I would assume that the Ravens would win and shut him down. Everyone throws for 300 yards these days, but I don't think he will.
It's a tough ask for a rookie quarterback on the road in a playoff game. Ross Tucker mentioned he's going to be there. It's going to be freezing in Baltimore. So it's going to be tough for a guy that plays in a dome, even though he plays college ball at Ohio State. Stats and over this game, Ravens used play action in seventh highest rate in the regular season, 26%. And Lamar Jackson thrived with it, ranking in the top 7 in the league in QBR, completion percentage, and yards per attempt. However, the Texans were among the worst defenses defending play action. They ranked the bottom 5 in QBR, completion percentage, and yards per attempt. Do you want the officiating notes? I mean, that is some deep dive analysis.
Do I? I don't know. Do I?
In a year when NFL officials threw more flags for intentional grounding than any season since at least 2000, it should be noted that referee John Hussey's regular season crew was the most aggressive with 7 such flags. As it turns out, Jackson took 5 such penalties, most in the NFL. Stroud only took 1. You know what? Does that affect your gambling picks there, Craig? The intentional grounding statistics.
No.
I know you're a big stat guy.
I am.
Love the analytics and we need umpiring analytics. I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal.
When Doug Eddings is there, it's bad. That's my analytics for umpiring.
I got the Ravens winning this game. I think the Texans cover. I think it's gonna be a close one in Baltimore.
Hope so.
The night game, the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers. The 7-seeded Packers and the number 1 seed San Francisco 49ers. Niners favored by the same amount of points as the Ravens are by 9.5. An NFL record 10th playoff meeting between the Niners and Packers, with San Francisco holding a mere 5-4 edge. What's more, the Niners have won 6 straight NFC divisional round playoff games, the longest active streak in the National Football League. The winner will either take or share the title of winningest team in postseason history. Packers are tied with the Patriots at 37, could move into first place alone with a win. With a Niners victory, that would tie them with Green Bay and New England. The bold prediction, though, Jaden Reed will be the Packers' leading receiver. Didn't catch a single pass the week before, but as an opportunity, as he'll have an opportunity. That's the bold prediction. Jaden Reed will be the leading receiver. I will sell that.
It's your own idea.
Romeo Dobbs.
I assume you have to buy all of your own ideas.
No, they're not. The bold predictions come from ESPN. So that's why I like to poke holes in them sometimes. I'm not buying that at all. He didn't even catch a pass last week.
Niners. I like the Niners here. I think it ends for Green Bay. I think they had a great win, and they should celebrate that win next week when they are eliminated.
I think the Niners win by 9.5 plus. I think they're going to destroy Green Bay. But you never know. It is the NFL postseason. Niners have won their past 5 home playoff games, longest active streak in the National Football League, with 2 of those wins coming against the Packers. 49ers have dominated those matchups with 4 or 5 wins coming by 14-plus points. And this Niners team is a lot better than the previous ones, and this Packers team is a lot worse than those previous Packers teams. I will take the Niners big. I also will sell that bold prediction. Those are Saturday's games. Sunday's games will be a little bit earlier. 12 noon kickoff on the West Coast on NBC. You can stream it on Peacock, but it's not Peacock exclusive for everybody that couldn't see the game last week. It will be the Buccaneers at the Lions. 2 division winners dueling it out up in Detroit. Detroit will host a playoff game for the second weekend in a row. Fresh off winning their first playoff game in 32 years, those Detroit Lions, as I mentioned, will host their first NFC divisional round appearance since the 1991 playoffs. I wasn't even close to being alive at that point in time. These teams will clash for the second time this season after Detroit won the regular season matchup 20-6 at Tampa Bay. Ooh. Buccaneers quarterback Baker Mayfield and Lions quarterback Jared Goff have both revitalized their careers in new settings as the former number 1 overall picks, and then will look to carry their respective teams with their strong play. Before we get to the bold prediction, Lions are favored by 6.5, Craig.
Yeah, I've got this sneaking feeling about Tampa Bay. I kind of feel like I want to back them. At the same time, I am of 2 minds because I also think the Lions will continue to win as long as they're at home, and then they will lose immediately thereafter. So I'm going to take the middling route for the Lions to win by something between 1 and 6 points.
You got the Bucks plus 6.5, but do you think the Lions will win? I concur with that. I think this one's going to be a lot closer than people think. The bold prediction, the Bucks will hold the Lions under 20 points and win. So you're selling the win part, but do they hold the Lions under 20?
I mean, they could, but seeing as it's a 2-part bold prediction, I'm selling that prediction because it ends with the Bucks winning.
I agree with that. I agree. I would sell that as well. I like the Lions in this one, although I think it's going to be close. I think we got some opportunities for some great games aside from last week that are different from last week that had a lot of blowouts. Stats to know the Buccaneers defense has blitzed 41% of dropbacks by opposing quarterbacks, 3rd highest rate in the National Football League. They could look to dial that up even more against Goff, who has 7 turnovers when blitzed this season, which is tied for 2nd most in the NFL. Jared Goff cannot handle the pressure that maybe the Bucs will throw at him. So that might be a key factor in that game. Last game of the weekend will be, I think, the best game of the weekend. At least it's the best game on paper.
It's got to be.
Kansas City Chiefs at the Buffalo Bills. Bills are favored by 2.5 at home. Yes, they are continuing their help from the fans and shoveling out their stadium. They're going to be at Orchard Park. They're paying $20 an hour plus meals, and a lot of Bills fans are out there shoveling snow right now to get ready for the game at 3:30 Pacific time on Sunday on CBS. It'll be the first time in this rivalry between Mahomes and Josh Allen that the Chiefs are coming to Orchard Park for the postseason. Quarterbacks have met 6 times, the Bills winning 3 of the 4 regular season meetings, and the Chiefs taking both postseason games. Well, of course, both of those being at Arrowhead. The difference for the Bills in the regular and postseason matchups is the defensive success. In the regular season, the Bills held the Chiefs to 20.8 points per game and produced 9 takeaways. But in the postseason, Kansas City has averaged 40 points a game and only 1 turnover. That will be a big test ahead for the Bills defense dealing with a variety of injuries. Before the bold prediction, Craig, you got the Bills minus 2.5. Do you think the Chiefs pull the upset?
So this is supposed to be Buffalo winning here. This is supposed to be the moment where they overcome all of this and knock out Mahomes. And the way that Kansas City's season has gone, it would be appropriate for the Chiefs to bow out on their first road game. So I'll go with it. Why not? Why not? Who cares? There's nothing on the line. I'll go with the Bills to win this one by 3 points on the last second field goal.
This one's tough. Teams that win in the postseason play good defense, and they have a good running game. The Bills' running game, even though it is improved, is mostly Josh Allen. You cannot run the ball with just your quarterback. Defense is a little banged up. And I think that stat is very chilling about making adjustments during the season and playing a team twice. Andy Reid's gotten the better of Buffalo both times. I think this is finally the time that Buffalo gets over the hump against Kansas City. I think they get to the AFC Championship game. I think they win. I think they cover. Buy or sell, Mahomes and Allen will combine for at least 6 touchdown passes. I could buy that.
How snowy? How windy?
Depends on the wind, obviously. Snow is not a factor for throwing the ball, but wind
is gigantic. And I've seen windy games at Buffalo where the second the game started, the idea that the quarterbacks would combine for 6 touchdown passes was a complete joke. So just in case, I'll sell that.
You're going to sell it. As of right now, the forecast is supposed to be 20 degrees and shouldn't be too much wind.
Which would then
10 miles an hour.
It would push me over to the yes, they probably will. But Allen's been running a lot. Mahomes likes to run too, so I'll stick with it.
I will buy the 6 touchdowns for that one. And that is a look at the NFL this weekend. We'll go into more detail over the weekend tomorrow from 11 to 1.
On the Braden
Soprenet Show, get you the full preview of the NFL playoffs, and all those NFL playoff games are right here on 97.3 The Fan.
So that's awesome. You're working your way right to the pregame show then.
Yes, I will be the local pregame show for the NFL playoffs on Saturday.
Outstanding. Great segment. Much appreciated. Braden's football segment will be back next week. He'll be back again for the Super Bowl. That's probably it. For a little while. I mean, just for a little while. But.
That's right.
But I like it. I'm very happy with that segment. You know what else I'm happy about? We're halfway through the show, and the 12 o'clock Sports Fix Weekend Edition is next. Find out everything you need to know as a San Diego sports fan in 2 minutes on The Fan. Here we go. Hour number 3. It is 12 o'clock in America's finest city, and we are thrilled you are with us. It's Annie and Elsten, your new midday hang on San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We are quite unfortunately an Annie-free zone today. Craig Elsten with Braden Suprenant here with you till 2 o'clock when Gwen and Chris take over. Then it'll be the Scraby Show from 6 to 7. Tomorrow, Braden Suprenant on 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with the debut of the Braden Suprenant Show, followed by NFL football all weekend long. We've got plenty planned for the second half of the show. A lot, actually, quite a bit. Show's just going to fly from here till 2 o'clock. But we do it every day on Annie and Elsten. We know at 12 o'clock, quite often, you're just pulling up the laptop, maybe checking in on the YouTube show while you're getting your lunch, whether you're at work, whether you're at your desk, whether you're in your car. It's a tough time, busy time, fractured time, hard to stay on top of everything that's happening, especially in local sports, which you usually can't even find if you open up a national website or sometimes even the newspapers. So that's where we are here for you. It's our daily news service for you, our daily public service. We call it the 12 o'clock sports fix. It is a chance to get caught up in one easily digestible segment to everything happening in San Diego sports and the world of sports in general. And Braden, normally I started off by handing over to you because your area of our little, what do we call it? Our little buckets of information. We've given you college basketball. That's been the lead story, but we have breaking news. We started at 10 a.m. begging for just something to happen in Major League Baseball free agency, preferably for the Padres. Well, how about Padres adjacent, a player leaving the Padres? Jeff Passan has announced a 5-year, $95 million free agent contract for closer Josh Hader with the Houston Astros. It was just an hour ago, Braden, we talked about the fact that the Astros were pursuing Josh Hader. Now that pursuit is complete. A 5-year, $95 million deal with no deferrals within it. Edwin Diaz's $102.5 million deal with the Mets last year had significant deferrals that dropped its present-day value to $93 million. So as such, this is the most valuable present-day contract ever given to a relief pitcher. Josh Hader is undoubtedly great. We know that. And he's going to a team that already had a great closer. Ryan Presley, 20 for 20 in his career and save opportunities. Who's going to close? Hader's going to close, gang. But he won't have to pitch the 8th, Braden, because they got Presley for that.
Yeah, the bullpen for the Astros has been a major problem over the last couple of years. As somebody that has Astro friends, they've just complained about the bullpen for so long, and they're going to get a big ad right now. And as you mentioned, with Ryan Presley back there, it's not like he's going to have to, Josh Hader's going to have to make multiple saves opportunity like in a row, and he's not going to have to go in 8th and 9th inning. I mean, very rarely. I would imagine he probably does that after he got his big contract, but Josh Hader got the contract that he was looking for. I'm just glad it is not in the Padres division. Don't have to deal with the Astros except once every year.
That is exactly right. We are down to this as Padres fans. We are down to hoping players sign in places that don't directly impact the Padres win-loss. That's why we were a little sadder when Shota Imanaga signed in Chicago, because that's a team we're probably going to have to fight for the wild card. Josh Hader and the Astros, don't have to worry about them. Don't have to worry about any of that anymore. I suspect the Hader House rules will continue as is in Houston. No more than 2 days in a row. Must be a safe situation. Must be the 9th inning. If I'd worked 2 days in a row, give me 2 days off. Ryan Presley's there to cover it. Neris, they've got guys. Abreu, they've got guys in the bullpen. That's going to work for Houston. That's your top story because it just happened. Breaking news. Now, let's get to the top local story, Braden, which is San Diego State on the road for a big one tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I got all college teams in action tomorrow coming up in men's and women's basketball. Let's talk about last night. The UC Irvine Anteaters knocked off the UC San Diego Triton 76-65. Triton's kind of stopped playing in the last possession, and the Anteaters slammed down a big dunk and exclamation point. Game ended in a little bit of a scuffle. Looked like both sides ended up cooling down and shook hands afterwards, but a little bit of interesting finish there. Those two teams will be back in action against each other in February 24th here at Lion Tree Arena. tough night for Bryce Pope, only 1 for 8 from the field. Big reason why UC San Diego had a little bit of a down showing against the top team in the Big West, the Anteaters. Local women's basketball, it was Irvine and UC San Diego in women's basketball at Lion Tree Arena. It was the Irvine Anteaters that knocked down UC San Diego 57-49. Sumaya Sigapong out of La Jolla Country Day, who is a freshman at UC San Diego, unbelievable athlete for the women's basketball team at UC San Diego, dropped 19 points in the loss, and she has been on a tear in her freshman campaign coming out of the prestigious La Jolla Country Day women's basketball program. Pacific beat USD last night, 75-48. I was on the call for that one with David Gentili. Veronica Sheffy scored 17 in the loss. As you mentioned, Craig, a little bit of a tease before, the big story of the weekend for local college basketball, the Aztecs, after beating Nevada earlier this week, will go up to Boise State to take on the 12-5 Broncos, 3-1 in the Mountain West Conference. That game will be at 10 in the morning on CBS. Aztecs trying to stay in first place in the Mountain West Conference, keeping strides with Utah State, who is also tied for the lead at 4-1. It's a penalty you have to pay if you want to play on national television. You got to play early in the morning.
No good.
Hawaii Rainbow Warriors are in town to take on the UCSD Tritons. They're 10-8 on the year. The Warriors are 2-4 in Big West play. Tritons 11-7 after the loss to Irvine, 5-1 in the Big West. That game will be at 4:00 on ESPN Plus. Steve Quiss on the call. Gonzaga Bulldogs 12-5 and 3-1 in West Coast Conference play will come down to take on the Toreros at 7:00 on ESPN Plus. Myself with Jack Cronin will be on the call on that one.
You better be ready.
I will be ready to go. I know Jack will be ready. He's been hyping it up for a while.
Big one.
It is a big one. San Diego's still trying to get their first win in conference play. Major high school news involves San Diego. 5-star prospect that came out of Carlsbad High School, Julian Sayin, who graduated early to be able to play at Alabama in the spring, has entered the transfer portal. Due to, obviously, Nick Saban no longer being the head coach. Kalen DeBoer has come over from Washington. He has brought his top quarterback recruit with him. So Julian Sayin has entered the transfer portal, and I'll be curious to see where he will go. It'd be nice if Sean Lewis could get Julian Sayin. That would be a top-notch pickup. We'll see what that happens in that deal. Point Loma High School announced a new head football coach, Ryan Price. Congratulations, Ryan Price, who will now lead the Pointers in high school football over there in Point Loma. And the top 4 games on the weekend, all coming up tonight in high school basketball. Mater Dei will take on Montgomery down in the South Bay. A battle of 17 and number 2 in the county. 6:30 at Montgomery High School. Mission Hills will take on their crosstown rival San Marcos at 7 over at San Marcos High School. By the way, one of the most gorgeous high schools I've ever seen. Looks like a junior college. El Camino Wildcats will take on the Carlsbad Lancers. 13 Wildcats, number 1 in the county. Carlsbad at 7:00 up in Carlsbad. And then the big rivalry between La Costa Canyon and Torrey Pines will happen at 7:00 at Torrey Pines High School. Torrey Pines 15-5, led by their head coach John Olive, will take on the Mavericks, who are 13-4. There are lots of rivalry games. If you want to check your local high school to go support some local high school basketball, Max Preps has it all for you on the calendar. So that's a look at the college and high school level when it comes to your sports fix. Here's Craig with his arena sports breakdown.
Arena sports time indeed. And I get to keep all the pros as well because we don't have any to continue on our handoff here on the 12 o'clock sports fix. Oh, I got one more for you, though, for college hoops. Cal State San Marcos, Cal State East Bay tomorrow on the San Marcos campus at 3 p.m. Okay, in the arena. Pechanga Arena will be quiet this weekend. I believe it's Disney on Ice. Don't worry about that.
The Disney road trip, is that what it is?
Yes, sir.
The Disney road trip. It's like the rodeo road trip in San Antonio.
Our beloved San Diego Gulls will be north of the border. They will be at Abbotsford to take on the Abbotsford Canucks on AHL TV. That is on Saturday evening and Sunday afternoon. San Diego Seals are at Albany Saturday, 4 p.m. on ESPN Plus. I believe it's the second time they've gone there, and they lost last time. Albany is good, so that should be a good matchup for Dane Doby and Austin Statz and the rest of the Seals. Our beloved Sockers are off this weekend. They will just celebrate Wednesday's win and Brandon Escoto's Golasso bicycle kick for the remainder of the weekend, and then prepare for their next home game, which is next Saturday, January 27th, against St. Louis Ambush. NBA, big doubleheader tonight on ESPN. It's Nuggets Celtics, followed by Nets Lakers. Possible finals preview in that early window with Jokic and the Nuggets against Tatum and the Celtics. For the Lakers, they're just trying to get over 500. All-star voting ends tomorrow in the NBA. LeBron, Jokic, Durant, Doncic, and Curry is your West starting five, unless something changes. Giannis, Embiid, Tatum, Halliburton, and Trae Young, the East starting five. Pacers will debut Pascal Siakam at power forward tonight when Indiana travels to Portland. Clippers host the Nets on Sunday. Lakers host Portland on Sunday night as well. And Saturday, Oklahoma City at Minnesota. Top two teams in the West will tangle. NHL, Ducks are at the Sharks. Rangers at the Kings on Saturday night. Rangers slide over to take on the Ducks Sunday at what used to be called the Pond. And as we wrap up the Sports Fix, Braden, some real sad news in the world of sports media today. If you are somebody who was young enough to still get Sports Illustrated in the mailbox on a week-to-week basis. I know growing up, that was a magazine subscription that I asked my parents for probably when I was around 11 or 12 years old. And every week it would be truly one of the highlights of the week to see what athlete was on the cover, to get the in-depth reporting, the outstanding interviews, the in-depth coverage of every sport, personal interest stories. Sports Illustrated had it all. It was truly the great sports magazine of its era. You know, you had newspapers like the Sporting News to try and compete. Today, the parent and Sports Illustrated has been a complete and utter shadow of itself for years. It was bought out, cannibalized, changed.
AI articles
Written by computers. Exactly. Now, today, the parent company of Sports Illustrated let their staff know that the publishing license for the magazine has been revoked and everybody's laid off. The name SI will still continue as a zombie on some companies. For example, I know there's a tickets platform that calls itself SI. There will be some other things randomly because they have sold out and pawned out the name in the past few years in order to try and keep the brand alive. So many great writers. Just locally, I think Lee Jenkins is one of those. Shipnuck. Oh my God. I mean, you just go on, right? We could just name all the incredible writers who had made that brand part of what it was. And now it's gone forever. I mean, it had been reduced to the point that it doesn't feel like the blow it certainly would have been to 18-year-old me. But Sports Illustrated being gone, that's legit sad for me on this day.
It's very sad. Another, magazine that I used to read, as a kid. I used to have some cool stuff back in the day. I remember their March Madness preview was always really cool. It came with this little bracket in the middle of it, and it's really, I mean, you knew it was dark times when they tried to undercut the writers over there by having AI produced articles with fake photos to make it look like people are writing. I mean, that was so despicable in general that I wasn't surprised that it's slowly it was going to slowly die a slow death here. But unfortunate situation, and the same thing with the New York Times cut their sports department, and it's just tough to see in the media world and all spots of the media world where a lot of companies don't want to pay for the talent and for a lot of people like us that are in the industry that are producing all the content for some of these. And I saw that with the LA Times today. The LA Times, a lot of their writers are boycotting today to try to get what's rightfully theirs. I mean, Dan Wilkie already said he's not covering the Lakers tonight for the LA Times.
Wow,
to stand with all of his writers. This is what the tweet he put out, to stand with all the writers at the LA Times. So, tough times, scary times right now in sports media when a lot of people want to undercut that human element, and what big reason why people tune in to get that personal connection, with the writers and with the on-air talent and everything that goes in sports media. So it's a tough day. It's a sad day. And, hopefully all those guys land on their feet and find a different outlet, because people are always going to want real life stories, real life content. Just got to find the platform for it.
Big bummer. No more Sports Illustrated. Gone now, to be remembered. Tell you what, Randy Jones has been signing photo cards of his 1976 photo in his cover on Sports Illustrated. Iconic photo, the iconic photo of Randy Jones' career, and it's always that Sports Illustrated cover. So many amazing covers over all the years. Great memories, an incredible institution for so many decades. It had eroded, and now it is gone for good. And that is an absolute shame, but it's also the times. Just another thing defeated by the internet.
Yeah.
You can shake your fist at a cloud. You can do that. You can stare directly in the sun and get angry. But times have changed. Things have evolved. Media has completely changed. And frankly, the idea of having the best writing from the best writers packaged and sent through your mail slot, and it only comes once a week when we can get everything on our phone at every moment, you understand. You understand how such a thing comes to pass. That was your 12 o'clock sports fix for Friday, January 19th, 2024. Thanks for being here. We're going to take a quick time out. Annie and Elsten rolling on. We're approaching Let's Make a Trade, and a 1 o'clock hour that'll feature John Percota's debut on the show from the Pods Above Replacement podcast. New video out on YouTube today. Some really interesting directions to go in terms of how can the Padres marginally improve themselves, even with a lesser roster in 2024. That'll be followed by our weekly Netflix and chill streaming television recommendation segment, and wrapped up with Ask Us Anything. It's all coming up right here on your new midday hang. Annie and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. The best football show with Brian Baldinger wraps up the football world in just 15 minutes so you can be smarter at the water cooler. Join Baldy as he explains the biggest stories from multiple vantage points and the ripple effects it has throughout football. He dissects the NFL's most exciting moments and top players as only a film junkie can. Follow the best football show with Brian Baldinger in the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. There are no water coolers. It's a figment of your imagination. It doesn't exist. There's fill stations for your thermoflask. They could change it, Brandon. Or oh my God, I did it.
I'm gonna ban you for the show.
Yeah, I already Brian
did. Already did on YouTube.
And Braden.
Look,
Braden,
already did
Braden.
on YouTube. Look,
Yeah.
you're gone. See, I banned Craig.
Did you ban me?
Yeah, he's gone. You can't see him on YouTube anymore. It's just
Awesome.
the door. Guy got banned. I told
Here,
Jake. I warned Jake.
Hang on.
There you
Come
go.
back.
They're like,
Come back.
Craig apologized, so he gets to come back on the show.
So that's twice. That's 2 days in a row.
That's 2 days in a row.
You know,
that's worse than Annie not turning on her mic.
It's funny. Ben and I used to work together every day for 4 years, right? And it turned out how remarkably different we were. Like, anytime Ben took a day off, he would come back and flub all over the place. Like, he would take a day or two off. He would come back and it would just be one flub after another. And I got to tell you, I'm the exact opposite. Like, if I'm working every single day, I start to grind down. I start to make more mistakes. I forget the name of literally the guy I work with I didn't forget. It just stupid things come out. Stupid things come out of your mouth. I was trying to talk about various topics of discussion. I was like, buckets that you put things in with the stuff. Give me a couple days off. Monday, I'm going to be razor sharp. Just going to be locked in, razor sharp, witty, on point.
Your built-in
Remember every
excuse is you had Monday off. Threw you off for the whole week, you know?
Exactly.
And you were thinking about, you know what? You really want Brandon Belt on the Padres.
I was thinking about Brandon Belt. I was just looking at a comment about the zoo, right? We were talking about the zoo, the comment of the week. So, you know what?
You've watched my softball highlights.
Myself.
You've seen Brandon Belt hit. We're like the same hitter.
It makes
sense.
I'm forgiving myself now. I was just thinking about Brandon Belt. I said
this guy.
Brandon, but I know your name's Braden. I know what your
That's
name
a new
is.
one.
I know it. So Josh Hader.
Yes.
Josh Hader is now a Houston Astro. 5 years, $95 million. If you missed that, it just came out a few minutes ago. So what does that mean for the San Diego Padres? We were never going to sign Josh Hader. We did a segment at 11 talking about the reporting from Ken Rosenthal yesterday that Hader and Snell were being pursued by the Astros last year at the deadline. Obviously, that wasn't going to happen. We've already gone through that. We don't have to retread that road. But if there was one guy I would have been thrilled to trade at the deadline last year, it would have been Josh Hader. And getting just a little something for him. So now in Houston, gone. Put it in a box. Forget about it. Now it's Bobby Bullett's team. It's Robert Suarez's opportunity. First opportunity. He should probably get the first save. I think you've got Matsui as another very interesting option. And it's good timing that at 1 o'clock, our guest, John Prokota from Pods Above Replacement, is here to talk about the bullpen. And now we have at least definition. It's the kind of thing we knew it was happening all the way, right? We always knew Josh Hader wasn't going to sign here, nor should he. But he's an Astro. The rich get richer.
Yeah, I think is why a lot of Padres fans are not like disgruntled by it. I think, the moment that Blake Snell signs, I think Padres fans might be a little upset. I still think there's that, it's waning it's waning as the months go on. But I do think there's going to be a kind of like, you know what? We still thought maybe we could bring him back. I think Josh Hader, in the article they had and the way he kind of finished the season and didn't really want to put the team first, was thinking about his contract. And I understand it. I mean, I get it. It's that it's tough in professional sports. It's not like amateur sports, which is now officially just basically high school, which is slowly changing too, where you're doing everything for the team. It's for the betterment of the team. When you're a pro and it's about entertainment and it's about making money and you don't want to work again for the rest of your life because you're cashing on being a Major League Baseball player, you got to get as much as you can when you can get it. And if you think that you can risk injury in that thing, I disagree with it, but I get it. So with that sense, I think a lot of people were kind of like, all right, I'm kind of done with this Josh Hader thing. I'm done with the, I mean, they had some games in September that they could have made up some ground, especially when you missed by 2. I remember the game in San Francisco where they couldn't go to Josh because he didn't want to pitch, and that really stirs Padres fans the wrong way. And it's tough. I mean, you and I see it because we're in the industry, right? We understand the business side of things, and we try to put, our emotions aside. Those real diehard fan emotions that you lose when you decide to work in media and you decide to work in sports. You lose some of that, but fans put in so much time, effort, and money into their favorite teams, and they want them to win so bad that not getting the same from the players really will alienate a fan base from that said player. And I think a lot of fans right now are saying good riddance to Josh Hader and good luck to the Astros trying to convince him to pitch. I think he's going to pitch more with Houston after getting his contract. You disagreed on that. We'll see how that plays out. But one thing's going to happen. Either Padre fans are going to be really pissed that Josh Hader's closing 4 games in a row for Houston in the middle of May for no reason, or Astros fans are going to boo him out of the city with a 5-year contract. I can't imagine a guy like Josh Hader trying to set Houston on fire in his first year. But one of those two things is that they can't both happen. So one of those things is going to happen in this situation. And you know what? I warned my Astro friend. Yes, I do have a friend that happens to be an Astros fan. I've not cut him out of my life for all the cheating scandal, but I did warn him. I said, good luck trying to get him to pitch. And my Rangers fan in that group text was jealous that the Astros got Josh Hader. And I said, look, he's either going to pitch a lot and piss off Padres fans, or he's not going to pitch. And Nick here is going to just go bananas throughout the entire season.
Well, it's very interesting, though, because I think Josh Hader went to the exact right place in landing with the Houston Astros.
I agree.
And your friend brings up a very interesting comparison. If Josh Hader went to the Texas Rangers, he's the only guy in that bullpen. He is the one-man band in the Rangers bullpen, and everything else is going to be setting up Josh Hader. And at that point, Bruce Bochy 100% is going to be asking Josh Hader to come in with 2 outs in the 8th, to come in occasionally with 1 out in the 8th, and negotiate tough spots, because he would have had to. It would have been like, Josh, you're going to pitch 75, 80 innings this year. In Houston, they've got Brian Abreu and they've got Ryan Presley, and they've got other young arms behind that in their bullpen. They've got a wellspring of arms.
And great starters.
When you add that all up, Josh Hader can be pitched like a China doll in Houston all year. And unless there's like major injuries or major external factors, Hader will probably never have to throw more than 2 days in a row or 1 pitch in the 8th inning, and will mostly face the 7, 8, 9s. As Prakota's been noting in the chat, he had an unusually high percentage last year of facing the bottom of the lineup when he happened to come in. So there's a lot of good reasons to be like, it's okay. It's okay. Josh Hader is gone. What I'm going to remember forever is being there in section 307, soaked in the rain, and seeing those 3 dudes strike out 1, 2, 3 for the Dodgers to wrap up game 4 of the NLDS. He had that inning for us, 3 swinging strikeouts against the 3 best Dodgers, Betts, Turner, Freeman, 1, 2, 3. And I'll never forget it. It's one of the best sporting days of my life. Josh Hader finished that off. We were thrilled, beyond ecstatic, that he was available for the Padres that night. And he'll never be available for the Padres again. He'll be a Houston Astro. I think we learned a lot last year about him that was a lot less desirable when you watched him every day. But we'll never forget Game 4 NLDS.
I'll always remember I was not at Game 4 because I was in Tennessee, but I did go up to Dodger Stadium for the first 2 games of that series. And I remember him I was walking around the concourse. I had my media pass that we got as being the flagship. I drove up there for both days. I was like, you know what? I got a media pass waiting for me. I'm going to go up there. Um, you've been in that press box. It is tiny, so I obviously didn't have a seat, and I wasn't going to overwhelm Dave Marcus, Tony Gwynn Jr., and Jesse Agler in the booth. So I was just walking around the stadium, and to see him come out and get those final 3 outs in Los Angeles as well, and the feeling of leaving Dodger Stadium as a Padres fan that night was awesome, and a feeling that I've never felt really that much leaving Dodger Stadium, and I've done it multiple times. And the select Padres fans that were exiting that building were super excited. And the best part was Dodger fans immediately, I'm telling you right now, they immediately thought the series was over once they lost game 2 of that series at home at Dodger Stadium. I mean, I could not, it was like the season already ended in the parking lot. They were so sad, which was a lot different than leaving Dodger Stadium in that first game where they thought they were winning the World Series for the first time.
Because they beat Mike Clevenger. Woo!
Yeah, they beat Mike Clevenger, and everybody thought it was great. And then Josh Hader and the Goose shut things down at Dodger Stadium. And I'm going to tell you, the total role reversal leaving Dodger Stadium after game 2 was crazy, especially since it was a 1-1 series tie. It wasn't even like the Padres swept LA up in Los Angeles in one game they're going to win. But that was my favorite moment of Josh Hader. It's kind of the same as yours.
Josh Hader is a Houston Astro. It's okay. We weren't ever going to trade for him again anyway.
Not losing sleep over it.
When we come back after this break, however, we're going to make a trade. We're going to make a trade because the Padres aren't making any moves. It's time for our daily Let's Make a Trade. And just like we did last week, we're saving big for the last day of the week, Braden Soprenet, also known as, what did it say in the chat? Brandon Super Nintendo?
That's a new one. It's been superintendent before. I would give you more of a pass, Craig, if you mispronounce Soprenet, but the Braden part is just
it's just ridiculous.
Honestly,
It's
the guy's falling
pathetic.
asleep. He's waiting for a trade so bad he's just losing his mental focus. He's been grinding and staring at computers and the trade simulator.
God, you aren't kidding.
And Craig fired up MLB The Show to see what he could get away with on trades, and he is just all the names and the data points are blending together, and he needs an
I'm
out.
a mess.
You got, hey, you know what, buddy? An hour and a half left. You can make it through.
Someone invite me to your poker game tonight because I'm easy money tonight. Tonight, I'm just going to telegraph when I have aces, and I'm going to fold everything else. And I'll be a complete mess as I try to keep my head off the table. Let's make a trade. We're going big. We're going to the White Sox. We're going South Side next. Annie and Elsten on the Fan. Annie told us that she was going to miss today's show because of her work with the San Diego Sports Association and getting ready for Salute to Champions and all that jazz. But we know the real reason. We know the truth. Don't need a tinfoil hat to figure it out. Although I think you've said I should bring one for this segment. You need one
for this segment. You know how Ben puts the
it's right back here.
The hat on and the chain for his Ben Reed's raps that they do every once in a while. Have done it a long time, obviously. You need the tinfoil hat for the trades.
Just a jester's hat.
Yeah.
Little bells floating off to the side. I understand. It's time for Let's Make a Trade. This is the segment that when we took our blood oath to come on 97.3, when we stared Alan Cumming directly in the eye and he said, "Will you agree to make a trade every day until AJ Preller relents?" And I looked at him and I said, I will. I will. And here we are today, making another deal. Giving you 4 deals already this week. Picked up Mickey Moniak. Still feels like a good deal. Went and picked up Zach McKinstry because you can never have too many veterans coming off the bench.
Can never have too many ex-Dodgers.
Sure. We've made some deals over the course of the week. We did Manoah last week, right? They're all running into one another.
I think that was the first one you did.
They're all running into one another. So let's do another one. Maybe this is the one you'll listen to, AJ. Remember, AJ Preller has the power to cancel this segment anytime he wants. We make a point of it. We let him know. If you want to change the segment, just make a move.
Good thing you don't have Elvis Andrews anymore because we know where AJ's head would be.
Elvis has left the building.
Elvis Andrews.
All right. Let's think big today. We thought big last week on a Friday. We tried to trade for Guardians All-Stars and former All-Star starting pitchers. Today, we're going to one of the most coveted sites in the frozen offseason trade market, and that is Chicago, where right-hander Dylan Cease is a year removed from finishing second in the Cy Young Award voting in the American League. He is coming off a down season for him. He still has control remaining, and as such is still reasonably affordable. And his stuff, his pitch shapes, his velocities, his stuff plus, all of that suggests that Dylan Cease remains a high-quality starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. What would it take, Braden, for the San Diego Padres to acquire Dylan Cease?
I believe you'd have an answer on that, would you?
Well, I've got what the dumb trade simulator says.
I think it would cost you probably a Jackson Merrill and probably one of Snelling and Lesko, I would imagine, and maybe a major league player. I don't know.
I think that's probably right. Dylan Cease will get paid $8 million this year. That's the same price as Ha-Seong Kim. 1-for-1 trade. Let's do it. They won't take that. 4.58 ERA last year, but 177 innings pitched. This is his second to last season of arbitration, so you would get him next year as well at an arbitrated cost. Of course, AJ Preller never goes to arbitration, so they would figure that out. Struck out over 27% of hitters faced last year. That's an outstanding number. And from everything that's been reported, first-year general manager of the White Sox, Chris Getz, wants this to be his first signature move. If he's going to move Cease, he's got to win the deal. That's the feeling on the South Side. If you're going to move Cease, it better be for a king's ransom. You better win the deal. Baseball trade values and the trade simulator on that website makes it pretty easy to get Dylan Cease. It tells me that if I put Robbie Snelling, Sam Zavala, and Jacob Marcy in a trade, it adds up to 42.4 surplus value, and that Dylan Cease is worth 42.4 surplus value. So according to a machine that's not a real thing, Snelling, Zavala, Marcy would get it done. I don't think so. I think I think that the trade starts and ends with Merrill. And I think you could almost go straight up. But I think Merrill and another is probably what it would take to actually get Dylan Cease, which brings us back to that same old crossroads we've been at throughout this offseason, Braden. You got Ha-Seong Kim for 1 year at $8 million, almost undoubtedly to leave. You've got Jake Cronenworth for 7 more years with a limited no trade clause. And you've got Jackson Merrill on the come, probably 1 year away from being an everyday starter for the San Diego Padres. How do you solve this issue? You can't keep all of those players. Otherwise, you're throwing somebody at high cost into the wrong position.
We'll see. I mean, that's an interesting trade that you put together. I worked on one too to get Dylan Cease and a San Diego product from the White Sox.
Oh yeah, who that?
Nick Destrini.
Oh,
Cathedral Catholic Don, who just got traded to the White Sox last trade deadline from the Dodgers organization. Dylan Cease and Nick Destrini. I don't think this would work, obviously. We mentioned the Ha-Seong Kim. For Robbie Snelling, Ha-Seong Kim, Yaro Iriarte, and Marcos Castanen. That's an even 55.4 trade value for both. Quick swap.
yeah.
You have Cronenworth play second. You switch the Ha-Seong Kim, who the White Sox could sign to and build around. You give the White Sox 2 young arms. You get Dylan Cease with control, years of control, plus a young arm back who is a local product and Nick Nastrini, and then you throw in an extra middle infielder project that they can have in the future. That's my trade there.
I don't mind it. I also appreciate you coming across the line. That's twice now you've made a trade this week. Obviously, you're warming to the segment. Obviously, it's growing on you like fungus.
Well, it's it's make believe. So I made Dylan Cease and Nick Nastrini part of the organization. Would love it. You know what? I would imagine his parents, who have listened to the show, it's a good family friend of mine. I think they would be excited about this as well. To see Nick pitch in San Diego. I'd love to see Nick back in San Diego. Scripps Ranch kid, went on to play at Cathedral, played at UCLA. Went back to San Diego with Dylan Cease.
This is why you made the trade. It was just to bring a Don.
Yeah, just bring Nick
Padres.
back. Yeah, family friend back.
It's fine.
I looked, this is what I did. I looked at
I'll accept it.
the surplus value for everybody.
Right.
For the White Sox, and he was a 13.0.
I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty high.
That's pretty high. I mean, he was obviously highly coveted. I knew he was very well received in the Dodger organization. At first, I thought that stinks because the Dodgers do a really good job of developing pitchers. I've talked to him about everything that they have done and really changing everything that he does to be the pitcher that he is. And I thought, well, having him go to the White Sox kind of stinks, but he's got an open door now to potentially make the pros a lot faster, the big leagues, than he did in Los Angeles. But he is a 13 ranking on the 23-year-old starting pitcher. That had some college experience already. It's a good arm that I think would be great for the Padres.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing, obviously you plug names into the machine and it all works. I don't think Kim's a fit for Chicago.
I don't think so either.
And it would have to be a situation where they had another deal waiting, right? Where like they could flip Kim to somebody else or start him, for the beginning of the season and move him on. I don't necessarily believe in that one. I also don't necessarily believe that Snelling, Zavala, and Marcy would be enough, but the machine says so, and it does seem like a lot. I mean, Snelling is right there, minor league pitcher of the year. Marcy, AFL MVP, pump and dump. Sammy Zavala, another kid that's on the rise, an outfielder that we'd maybe love to see in that outfield in 2 years for San Diego, but this is that gap year for the Padres. Guys who aren't quite ready, but look really good for the future, and then empty holes that need to be filled.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the tough. I think this is going to be the toughest year for the Padres in the next couple of years. I do think, as much as that window of opportunity I think it is closing. I think there's a little bit open of a window, but I think next year the window goes back to opening again with some of these young players, at least a couple of them, because not all of them are going to work out. But if you could get if Snelling and Lesko could be the guys that you're expecting them to be, and you add Merrill, and those three are are as advertised, that really set yourself up for filling out a roster, not having to spend money, saving that money when you get more guys off the books next year. Most notably, obviously, Hassan Kim's going to come off the books, but some players' salaries go down a little bit for the Padres, and then only got one more year left of Eric Hosmer. All of a sudden, next offseason seems a lot more bearable for Padres fans than this offseason was.
Let's make a trade, Chicago style. What do you think, fans? Drop us a message in the chat if you are interested in that deal or not. Dan Comer says that Padres don't want Dylan Cease. Well, I mean, he's expensive. $8 million at this point seems like a lot for our mighty San Diego Padres, but I'm hopeful that they're ready to make an aggressive move at some point. I'll just say to wrap up this week's Let's Make a Trade segment, something I've said in previous segments, but it bears repeating. 2024, we're paying the highest ticket prices we ever have at Petco Park, and we want a good team on the field. And it is really, really tough to get there without making a trade. And I, for one, am willing, given the status of the Padres farm system now, to make one significant trade, not to blow out the farm for Nola and Clevenger like we did in 2020, but to make one significant trade that puts us back in the conversation for real. And it doesn't make us live on fantasy land and mysticism and regression to the mean as the way that we're going to be better in 2024 than we were in 2023.
I agree with all that, because the same thing. I mean, you're paying the highest ticket prices that we've had in a long time. Obviously, inflation's knocked it up, and there's a lot of business things involved with that. But if you're going to pay more money, I think a lot of people would like to see a winning product and a very good team. And they have the ability to do that. They have the ability to flip some of those guys, because it's almost as much as a lot of those guys you hope can help facilitate the Padres. There's a lot of players too we don't really talk about too much that are blocked with guys that are signed for a very long time in front of them that you're going to have to make a decision on, almost like you did with Jake Cronenworth and Hassan Kim. It's the same situation, not as drastic as the Cincinnati Reds, but the Reds are going to have to make some decisions on some of their players because all their top players play the same positions.
Hey, breaking news out of the NFL. Adam Schefter of ESPN reporting that the Raiders are working to finalize a deal to keep Antonio Pierce as their head coach. Shout out to Antonio Pierce, once the head coach of the mighty Long Beach Poly Jackrabbits, and making it all the way from an NFL playing career to being a top high school coach to then getting to assistant, and now going to be the full-time head coach for the Las Vegas Raiders. Players were campaigning for Antonio Pierce to keep the job, and Mark Davis agreed, and he's keeping the job. Good for him.
Absolutely. The interim coaches, it's very hard for those to work out. Sometimes you buy into, almost like we talked about Trent Grisham in the playoffs, this kind of recency bias, but Antonio Pierce deserves an opportunity to be a head coach. It's even better he gets to stay with the Raiders, and we'll see how it works out for the Raiders. But congratulations, Antonio Pierce, who really flipped that season around for Las Vegas at the end of the season.
All right, I'm psyched for this fourth hour of our Friday program, Braden. When we come back, John Cota joins us from Pods Above Replacement. What are some of the strategies that Mike Schilt could use to take what he's got already right now and get more out of it than the Padres did from their pitching staff and their bullpen in particular in 2023? We discussed that and more. Netflix and chill and ask us anything to wrap up the show. Annie and Elsten on The Fan.
times start now. Here are your hosts, Annie and Elsten, on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Grooving ever closer to the weekend, your new midday hang. It's Annie and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan, with Braden Soprano, Craig Elsten here on hand with you today. Annie Heilbrunn has the day off, working for the San Diego Sports Association, getting the Salute to Champions dinner on February 5th. Cranking. They had a weekday and whole day full of meetings. And Annie sends her regards. She'll be back next week, of course, as we are here with you Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. till 2 p.m. Gwen and Chris coming up an hour from now. They'll be on 2 to 6. Matt Scraby and the Scraby Show will be on from 6 to 7 p.m. And then the local programming continues tomorrow with my man Braden. The Braden Soprano Show makes its debut Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., leading up to the NFL action. All 4 NFL divisional round games will be played right here live on 97.3 The Fan. All right, I'm really excited about this guest, Braden. As you know, for the past few years, I've been doing the Padres Hot Tub podcast. We had a changeover after 2022. My longtime co-host, John Gennaro, took a full-time job at Yahoo as a producer and couldn't stay on the show. We revamped with Chris Reed and Rafi Cantor. And then Rafi came along a couple of months in to 2023 and says, I'd like to start a more analytics, statistics-oriented, deep dive-oriented Padres podcast under the Padres Hot Tub umbrella, within our creating the Padres Hot Tub Network. And we did that. And Rafi and John Percoda created Pods Above Replacement. And they've done about 25, 30 shows so far, fairly regularly during the season. In the off season, a little bit more irregularly. But a new show came out today detailing the 2024 Padres bullpen and some very interesting theories on how to squeeze more juice out of the orange this year. So in what will be a semi-recurring thing, we are very excited to welcome to 97.3 The Fan for the first time the co-host of Pods Above Replacement, John Percoda, joining us from the Mile High City, Denver, Colorado. John, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Braden. Thank you, Annie, although she's not there. You guys have been killing it to start. I'm very excited by your guys' start over the new year. Great job so far.
Thanks, and congratulations. I know you were newly married over the winter as well.
That's right. I'm a married man.
Unfortunately, we don't have your video today like we normally would on Pods Above Replacements, or everyone would understand why that was so disappointing to so many people to find out that you were taken off the market.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's exactly what the female audience is thinking right now.
All right. Well, we will talk baseball. Just dropped this morning a new Pods Above Replacement, and John, as soon as it dropped, I clicked play on the YouTube video this morning. Only had X amount of time before I had to come in for the show, so I've watched all but maybe 15, 20 minutes of the latest show. But your guys' detail this week was on the 2024 Padres bullpen. We just had the news this last hour of Josh Hader now officially leaving San Diego and signing with Houston. So just as a point of entry, what are we looking at right now in your estimation for what the Pods have down there in the pen?
Yeah, well, what we were trying to do kind of in this offseason is think about what incremental improvements can the Padres do going forward. I mean, you don't lose Soto, Snell, Lugo, Waka, Hader, then spend like $50 million less on your roster and just become a better team, at least not very easily, right? So that was kind of one of our pet projects, is trying to figure out, well, what incremental improvements, one win here, one win there can we do and also we have to have like a little bit more clutch hitting. So that plus any kind of incremental improvements is what we need to get into the playoffs, right? And so those are the things that we were looking at. And one major liability that we've had the last 2 years compared to quality teams has been our use of middle relief, or I guess it's lack thereof.
Yeah, you had. I've teased it a couple times, so let's dig in here a little bit, John. And obviously, we can't go as deep in the weeds as you guys do on the full show. People can check that out on the Padres Hot Tub platform on YouTube. When our show is done, when Gwen and Chris is done, when Scraby is done, you can do around 7:00 tonight. You can check out the video. Nonetheless, I was really interested. I was listening and watching this earlier this morning. How the Padres, and I guess this is something we recognized about Bob Melvin, had a pretty slow hook. For the top two starters in the rotation, that was fine. But for everyone else, it was actually costly for San Diego last year.
Yeah, it's been proven for many years now that Darvish and Musgrove are horses, right? They can go through a third time through the lineup. And those kinds of players are very valuable. It's probably why the Dodgers were willing to spend so much on Glasnow, despite the fact that he's always hurt. Because when you have a pitcher that can go a third time through the lineup, and he's healthy on your roster, it's very valuable because it makes it so that the rest of your pitchers, you can use your good pitchers when you're in high leverage and your bad pitchers when you're in low leverage. But when you're not getting through, say, the 6th, 7th inning, then suddenly your bad pitchers are having to pitch more often in those high leverage situations. So we have two pitchers that can do it well, and those are Musgrove and Darvish, and then a lot of pitchers who definitely have proven that they cannot. And so our task is kind of trying to make it so that the players who are good at it do it often, and the players that aren't good at it do it less often.
So when a previous manager was here, Jace Tingler, who was very tightly aligned with A.J. Preller philosophically, at least while he was here in San Diego, the Padres tended to have a quick hook. That was somewhat attributed to Jace. Bob Melvin obviously is his own manager, and dating back to any stop along his managerial career, people have said that he trusts his pitchers, sometimes to a fault. But when you run that up against what you're talking about, that third time through the order statistical penalty, meaning when a pitcher goes through a lineup once, okay, best stuff. Second time, now hitters get another look at their secondary pitches. You get to that third time through the order, that's generally when good offenses feast and even mediocre offenses start to find their footing. Guys like Michael Wacha, Seth Lugo, Matt Waldron last year were quite often put in there past their expiration point.
Yeah, and they struggled. They struggled really, really badly. Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, in their 60 and a third innings that they went through a third time through the order, had a 7.31 ERA. And Waldron, Avila, anybody else who was doing that role last year, when they were able to do that, they also had an ERA that was well above 5.4. So the basic premise is, how do you become more like the teams that use their good pitchers when they can, a third time through, but then don't when they can't, right? So there are teams that pitch a third time through just as much as us that are good teams, but those teams have those horses. These examples of these teams are like the Braves, the Phillies, and the Astros, right? When you think of like Nolan Wheeler a third time through, those are guys, Freed, basically the whole Astros team. When you think about them going third time through, you say, yeah, those horses can do it. There's a lot of good teams that don't do it basically at all, and that's including the Dodgers, the Giants, and the Rays. Right, so you have to pick a side. You either put your pitchers in because they're the pitchers who can do it, or you bail quickly like the Giants, the Rays, and the Dodgers do.
And specifically to Tampa Bay, I know you use that as kind of a template, and Tampa has been the analytics darling of Major League Baseball, although I think the Dodgers, obviously, ever since Andrew Friedman come over, emulate a lot of their strategy. But the idea that you're positing here, that you're putting forward, is when you hear Wacha and Lugo, those were two pitchers who were really good last year for San Diego. And yeah, maybe getting 6 innings and 3 runs is a Major League Baseball quality start. But if you have them go 5 innings, giving up 1 run, and then a middle reliever comes in and gives up 1 run in 6 innings, well, that's 6 innings, 2 runs. That's a run saved along the way. Even if that middle reliever isn't of necessarily the same quality as you assigned to, let's take for this example, Michael King, right? Michael King is a converted reliever becoming a starter. He's not going to have the legs of a Darvish or a Musgrove. So if Mike Schilt holds Michael King to 18 batters faced more often than not in his starts, even though that holds him to a maximum of 6 innings, and we understand that, that's going to give overall the team ERA a chance to get a little bit better.
Yep, I mean, that's exactly our point. But I'll play the counter argument that I would posit against this theory, which is that, yeah, but Craig, when you do that, towards the second half of the season, you just run out of pitchers. And that's kind of what we saw in 2021, right? In 2021, we had nearly as many relief innings pitched as started pitcher innings pitched. And what happened was we started off the year really well. We got out to that 53-40 record in the first half. And then we didn't have any prospects to call up. We didn't have a lot of optionable players. We didn't waive anybody, and then we whiffed on the Scherzer trade. So we just ran out of pitchers. And so that's the major counter argument, I think. But then my counter to that counter is that this year, hopefully, we are building our team in a manner that we do have more options, that we can option players, that we do have more. Like we have a Rule 5 pick that we could send at any time. We have players that we can like just get off our roster because they're, good but not great. Examples of that are like Morehone, Glenn Otto, guys of that nature. So we can follow the successful first half of the 2021 model that was pulling guys at probably more appropriate times while also reloading in the second half.
Yeah, the Soto trade, while it obviously hampers the San Diego Padres offense for 2024 to a large degree, it brings in those kind of pitchers you're talking about, right? Because if you have a Johnny Brito who maybe is a 5-and-dime starter, but then you've got both Vasquez and Pedro Avila in the bullpen, well, that gives you an opportunity. And as you said, some other options that maybe you kind of burn through early in the year and say, we're going to overuse you for a month or two, send you down, send you to the injured list, whatever. But if you have two guys like an Avila, like a Vasquez is sort of your backbone for that, and say, if each of you can get to 80 relief innings this year, that's incredible. Give a chance to alternate them, keep them fresh. That's an overall better plan than trying to take whomever we put in spots 3, 4, 5 in the rotation and ask them to give us their doggone best. And that includes sending them through the lineup a third time.
Yeah, and then that really just ends up being an infrastructure problem, right? It's like, are you having those waves of prospects that can come up and you can send them up for a month and you can option them, when you need more help from the bullpen, because you are going to cycle through guys a little bit more quickly than we have been able to do in the past. And it's been a thing while we've been trading our prospects that we've had a lot of pitchers who are guys that are durable, but they're out of options. So they get tired, they're not performing well at any given time. Maybe they're just not a good matchup at this current time. Then you can't really do anything. You just have to stagnate. And that has not been successful a lot of the time, especially in middle innings.
We're talking to John Pricoda from the Pods Above Replacement podcast and video show. You can find it on YouTube. You can also find it on any major podcast platform, Apple Podcast, Spotify, etc. And we're talking about the 2024 bullpen, which was the subject of their most recent show. Now, Hader's gone. Robert Suarez is presumed to take over the ninth. What are your thoughts on Suarez's ability to step into a much more significant role?
Yeah, that's the whatever's the amount of money that the Padres are paying dollar question for the roster this whole year. The $230 million question. I don't know what he's going to be. He has such a small sample size at the major league level. So if you do want to play this game wherein you do shuffle through the middle innings a little bit more than we have in the past, you do need to have some shutdown guys at the end. You do have to commit some salary to good pitchers so that while you are keeping the game close in the middle innings, you have somebody that can shut it down towards the end. And for that, most quality teams have a good, 6 guys that you can use, from the 7th through the 9th innings every other day. So you can have, Suarez, Matsui, and Go maybe pitch the 7th through 9th innings on a Monday, and then have De Los Santos, Cosgrove, and Wilson pitch the 7th through 9th innings on the Tuesday of that week. But I don't know if those names sound exactly like. I don't know if I want say Go and Matsui being thrown right into the 8th inning of competitive baseball right away.
Yeah, you guys talked about Matsui and Go on the episode, and certainly there's a big difference between KBO and the Japanese major leagues, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean there is. There's always that jump, but the thing that makes me a little bit more less of a degrees of possible negative outcomes for Matsui is, one, he's done it at a higher level. The NPB is literally the second best league in all of baseball in the world, better than AAA, and he's facing good hitters, and he has a huge K rate that rivals Hader while he was with the Padres. So a guy that can shut down very good hitters and has proven it for a long time. When you're coming from the NPB, it's a little bit different than when you're coming from the KBO, which is Usuk Go. Usuk Go also has a high K rate, but he also has a huge walk rate, and he was pitching against guys who have not faced a lot of velocity, which would give them a huge upper hand. If you think about how much Kim struggled initially with velocity, I would imagine that a lot of KBO players struggle with velocity because there's just not a lot of velocity in the league. And so if he was already walking people at such a high rate and his ERA was like 3.68 last year, that one gives me a little bit of concern going forward.
Yeah, I mean, just at the most basic level, right? 25 years old, throwing that hard and getting a 2-year, $5 million deal, that doesn't add up unless there's some issues in terms of pitch shape and pitchability moving up from league to league that shied off a lot of other teams.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And so, which is, I mean, maybe we do tend to have a great international scouting team, so there's probably some reason that we were willing to give him that money. The problem is that it's KBO immediately into the major leagues, immediately into a probable high leverage situation. Like, what are the chances that all the, everything adds up, that he translates quickly, he gets comfortable not only being in a different spot, but being in a different role on a different team against much better pitcher or much better hitting, and immediately is able to succeed in high leverage. Even Suarez, who had faced major league hitters in the past and came over with velocity that was successful in MPB, struggled at first, right? And Usuk Go is in a much more precarious situation than I would say Suarez was when he originally came over.
Great point, John. Now, before I let you go, do we have enough on the south side in terms of southpaw pitching? Do we have enough lefty innings in the bullpen to get us through 6 months? Obviously, Matsui is a new addition. You'd hope to put 60, 65 innings next to him on the ledger. You've got Tom Cosgrove. He's kind of a specialty pitcher. Back in the day, he'd be what we called the loogie, the lefty 1-out guy. Nowadays, he's a lefty 3-out guy instead, because that's where the rules are. And as I kind of think through it, it brings me back to Morahone again, as could we maybe have this be the year that you get 30 or 40 innings out of Adrian Morahone in a relief role to help us get from here to there?
Morahone seems to be that answer every single year. It actually does. Morahone's story makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about this year, just because if you remember in 2021, when we had this similar, situation where we were a little bit short on starting pitching, he started the year as our 5th starter and got hurt immediately. And then we had to suffer through a bunch of Ryan Weathers, 5 ERA, over 5 ERA innings, and we still got to the break at 53 and 40. So we still were able to scrounge out those innings. So every year we seem to be relying on Morahone to do a little bit more this year. And so far, the most he's ever given was, I think, 32 innings or somewhere around 30 innings. And I don't think that, fool me once, fool me 20 times, or 5 years in a row, or whatever it's been for him. I think it's 5 straight years that he's had a total of 75 innings in 5 years. I don't think, I feel like it would probably be a fool's errand to just put a lot of faith in him providing. That being said, everything that he provides above, what he's given us in the past would be helpful. He's got great stuff on paper. He only has had a ERA about 5 in his career so far, so it hasn't proven itself on the major league field, and especially not in terms of quantity of innings. That being said, he has the stuff. Every scout's going to say his pitch shifts are amazing. He's a high quality potential pitcher. So we're going to be excited about him every year. I don't know that this is a year to have faith in him, but man, would it be helpful if he was successful? Because your point is that we don't have enough left-handed pitching. We do not have enough left-handed pitching, and I won't go into this. This is Rafi's portion of the podcast, so we talk about this specifically and just how important left-handed pitching is in relief in the major leagues. So tune into our episode if you want to go a little bit more into that. But the Cribs notes is that it's very important, and we don't have a lot of it right now.
This has to be the year for Adrian Morahone because he's out of options. So this is the year. This has just got to be it. This has got to be it. Really interesting stuff. Great analysis, John. I'm walking away from this going just with a little bit of a strategic emphasis on being disciplined about your non-Darvish Musgrove starts, keeping that collar on, not to always throw someone out after 3 innings, but to really look at those pitch and especially batter-faced thresholds as true guidelines for Mike Schilt on when he goes to his relief corps, that actually having that new group of 60-ish inning relief guys that we saw in the Yankees trade. It can actually help the Padres do better and be a little bit more efficient this year in their pitching than previous seasons. Excellent stuff. Let everyone know on the way out how they can support Pods Above Replacement.
YouTube is the best place. Just type in Pods Above Replacement. Please subscribe. We need some subscribers and some comments on our video. So if you could do that for us, that would be awesome. But we're also basically anywhere you can find podcasts. I would say that our podcast does tend to be a little bit better with a visual aspect, just because we put so many numbers up on the screen and try to explain things, analytically, that sometimes it's hard to just listen and find out exactly what we're talking about. But I think that it still works as a listen if that's your preferred mechanism of listening to a podcast.
So find it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. John Prokota, thanks so much. I know we'll chat many times as the season gets rolling. Thanks for making your debut today.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, you and everybody in San Diego.
John Prokota from the Pods Above Replacement podcast. He and Rafi Cantor do that fairly regularly during the season, Braden. It's more of a weekly show during the season. Off season, they go topic by topic. But what are your thoughts there? Simple ways to make the product better.
Yeah, just a lot of simple things that they've come up with, a lot of analysis and numbers that they put on their podcast, and there's some interesting things.
All right, when we come back, it's time for our weekly Friday segment, Netflix and Chill. I have got a new streaming television recommendation for you of one of the newer shows that's out on Netflix. And Media Melanie is going to jump in and offer a recommendation of her own as well. And then we'll wrap up the show with Ask Us Anything. It's all heading toward 2 o'clock. It's Annie and Elsten, your new midday hang. We are on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan.
Did you miss anything from your favorite fan talk show? The Odyssey app's chaptering feature allows you to skip any segment you want.
Like I can listen to those guys forever.
On 97.3 The Fan.
At the Golf Mart by Worldwide Golf, there's something
Join three-time Super Bowl champion Mark Schlereth on the Stinkin' Truth podcast. It's an unfiltered look at the NFL. Follow Stinkin' Truth in the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Rolling into the last half hour of this week of Annie and Elsten. Hey, it's a choice every single time you put on your radio or you click your browser and you set to YouTube and you decide to settle in on a show, or even if you're just listening on a podcast, we thank you for your patronage of the show. We're a new show. We're just in our second full week, third week overall. We appreciate everyone who's been an early adopter of Annie and Elsten. And yes, we prefer the show with Annie on it too. So I know that's what we want. Annie couldn't be here today. She won't be here Monday, although she might be able to fill in, according to what we've heard, for some bits or pieces. We're figuring it out. She's working on the Salute to Champions giant banquet and amazing ceremony taking place on February 5th. And then we will be like Voltron. We'll have all the pieces together all the time, flying through space. Braden didn't get that.
I'm
reference.
sorry, what were you saying?
Voltron?
Are you speaking English?
Voltron.
What is Voltron?
That was one of those Japanese cartoons that when I came home as a kid, I watched like 5 robot lions that would combine into a gigantic mecha droid. It's awesome. That's like when the three of us are on the show together. It's like all the lions forming into the mecha droid.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't Japanese anime? Okay, I don't know. I thought it was. It was a great cartoon that I enjoyed.
Well, I'm glad. What I used to watch as a kid. SpongeBob. A lot of SpongeBob.
Okay.
It's a great show.
Fair. It is a pretty good show.
I bet you
when my son started watching, like as a kid gets older, they get into stages. He had a SpongeBob stage a couple years ago. We had a lot of SpongeBob on. Pretty funny show. Pretty funny.
It's actually way more. It's funnier as an adult than it was as a kid.
No, for sure.
I have to say, there's some. As a kid, you're like, wow, Squidward is such a grouch, and then you become an adult, and you're like, I resonate with Squidward every day.
So, okay, it's time for Netflix and Chill. This is our weekly recommendation segment. If you don't know, I did about 4 years on Ben and Woods every Friday morning, coming on, offering some Padres thoughts, and then a streaming television recommendation show. And it was so popular that here I am now in the middays. Last week's suggestion, Braden, has been so popular. The most forwarded recommendation, I think, maybe I've ever done on 97.3 The Fan, which was The Traitors Season 2, debuting on Peacock.
I saw you you're posting about that last night, were you not? You're all excited about it?
Because the first 3 episodes dropped last week, and then now it's Thursday nights for new episodes. So, like, literally, I think the episode dropped at 9. My wife and I were on the couch at 9. We watched episode 4. I love The Traitors even more than I ever have before. And I just see our listening audience, our audience on Twitter, etc., just loving The Traitors Season 2. So I'm hopeful but I don't think this recommendation is as good as The Traitors Season 2. But I'm hopeful to give you a recommendation you'll enjoy here once again this week. And then to close out the segment, Media Melanie, who's always been in the chat the last 3 weeks during this segment, she's got a recommendation for us too. Annie's not here. She never brings a recommendation. So we're going to see what Melanie has to say. And if it's good, maybe she'll come back next week too. All right. Are you ready I think you'll like this show, Braden, if you turn it on. We're going to Netflix on this on the segment called Netflix and Chill.
I pay for that.
Let's go to Netflix for the new series, The Brothers' Son. If you're Americanizing it, The Brothers' Son.
Okay.
Full season, 8 episodes, available on Netflix now. This is an action comedy. That is your genre. This is a lively action comedy. Heavy on the action, heavy on the comedy. And it's got kind of the Netflix homogeneity of hitting a number of boxes at the same time. We meet Charles Sun, nicknamed Chairleg. He is the number 2 to his father in Taiwan as the head of a major gang, a Taiwanese triad. right? One of the huge gangs in Taiwan. And right at the beginning, this isn't a spoiler, this is right at the beginning of the first episode, the father is shot, not killed, but shot. And it appears that the family is under attack. And so Charles heads to America to make sure that he can protect his mother, played by Michelle Yeoh of Everything Everywhere All at Once, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Crouching Dragon, Hidden Tiger. Oh my God, I got that backwards. It is the end of the week. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. And Michelle Yeoh of Jackie Chan films, international superstar Michelle Yeoh. She is the mother, and Charles' brother lives with his mother in America, named Bruce, played by Sam Lee, who is just a funny, smart, soft high school kid that is taking improv classes and trying to get into college. Completely the antithesis of his brother, who is a hardened killing machine, like literally like the most dangerous human being on earth, can kill 3 people that jump into his apartment at a whim. So you've got an odd brothers, odd couple comedy thing going on. You've got Michelle Yeoh as the head of the family, as the matriarch. You've got a plot that's involving, somebody's trying to kill us, and what are we going to do? We got to do this, that, the other thing. But it's not complicated, and it is in no way heavy. This is straight up a laugh type show, R-rated action comedy, light, super disposable. You can watch this and probably forget about it when it's done. But while you do, you're likely to laugh and you're likely to have a fairly pleasant time. So this week's recommendation, The Brothers Sun on Netflix.
Oh, sounds good. I might have to tune into that over the weekend if I have time. It's very difficult for me.
You're a busy man.
I'm very busy. I don't know how you're a very busy man in the sports world here.
Right now I'm ridiculously busy.
That's what I'm saying. How do you make the time to get all this in?
It's been hard. I got to tell you, I'm trying to figure that out. That's an adjustment. I'll tell you straight up what the difference is. Like Wednesday night when the Sockers game was over, normally I would have watched a show. Instead, I turned on the Aztecs game.
Right? Got to be that, because it's like you got to be in on every potential thing you could talk about on the air, especially in the sports world in San Diego. All the news, got to stay up on all the news. Plus, you're doing the Sockers, and you got to come up with stuff on this Netflix show too. It's a lot of time.
I'm dedicated to the craft. I'm dedicated to our audience, Braden. I am dedicated to quality programming here on middays on 97.3 The Fan. Let's welcome on the line Media Melanie. She's got a recommendation of her own. Good afternoon, Melanie.
Hey guys, how's it going? Happy Friday.
It's even happier now that you're on the show. Thanks for chiming in.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I am all here for all of the streaming TV all the time. And I'm coming this week with an anthology show recommendation, True Detective Season 4 on Max. Episode 1 was really great. It stars Jodie Foster, Callie Reese, and it takes place in the all-day darkness of Alaska. It's the first season of the show in 5 years. Have you guys watched the prior seasons before?
I have. I've been a huge I loved season 1. Season 2, that was during when I was going back to college, so I missed the end. I kind of tuned out of season 2. I wasn't a big fan. Season 3, I thought was going to be as creepy as season 1, and it didn't really go anywhere. So I've been a little hesitant on starting season 4. I know my parents started it this week, so can you give me a reason why, as somebody that loved season 1 of True Detective, why I should watch season 4?
Well, first of all, I'm right there with you. I loved season 1. Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson were great. I was out on season 2 and season 3 and felt the same way. I was hesitant, but Jodie Foster brings it. This one is dark, it's cold, it's mysterious, and it's got what seems to be setting up is a supernatural element, and it doesn't feel too overtly done. I think after the first episode, I am fully on board for the season. There are only 6 episodes, though, whereas the past seasons have each had 8. So that makes me think maybe they'll just get right to the point, and it'll be the perfect cadence for the new season.
That sounds like a True Detective mixed with The Outsider, which I actually really enjoyed. I know we haven't talked about that, Craig, but I really enjoyed that series too when that streamed right around 2020.
I liked The Outsider as well. I thought it wore on just a little bit at the end because it's always tough when you've got something mysterious once you actually reveal the mystery.
Right.
It's better to build the mystery than to reveal the mystery. That's kind of been True Detective's issue as well. Although season 3, I thought Mahershala Ali, regardless of what you think of how the plot went, I thought his performance doing multiple versions of himself was remarkable. But I really like this, Melanie. Great recommendation. Thank you. We'll absolutely have you on for next week's Netflix and Chill if you've got one for us as well. And again, just simply because I've been too busy, I haven't clicked True Detective Night Country episode 1 yet, but I 100% will hit that and episode 2 this weekend.
Do it. Sounds good. Thanks for having me, guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Media Melanie there. Now I've all of a sudden found a co-host for Netflix and Chill.
There you go.
This is great.
We'll try to get us to watch here.
Oh, we are absolutely we are growing, we are expanding. And Elisa says, I agree with this. 6 episodes. I like a 6-episode drama. That is what you get from all of the British series. It's always 6 episodes.
I like that.
It just tightens it up just enough. It makes it propulsive, right? Keep going. We don't have to sit down in grandma's living room for 20 minutes to try and build some added character. Let's go. Let's keep it snappy. I think especially for True Detective, that's a good idea to keep the pace high. So very much looking forward to that. There it is, your Netflix and Chill. The Brothers Sun and True Detective Night Country. One on Netflix, one on Max. Your 2 recommendations for your streaming pleasure this weekend. When we come back, ask us anything. Hey, go ahead, get on the lines right now. This is your opportunity to ask Braden and myself anything you want. It doesn't have to be about sports. It's better if it's not. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. We'll take comments and questions out of the chat. And I've got one saved from yesterday that I want to get to as well when we wrap up Annie and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the week, Annie and Elsten on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Craig Elsten here, Braden Soprano with me. Annie will be back next week, busy with the Salute to Champions preparations for San Diego Sports Association. Can't wait to have her back. Look forward to breaking down a great weekend with you and being here for 5 full shows next week. We'll do the whole 20-hour shindig with you next week.
Wow.
Can't wait. 16 was good, but 20 will even be better.
It's more fun.
I think. It'll be way better. Can't wait. All right, it's time for Ask Us Anything. This is how we wrap up the show. We've given you some of the most detailed, in-depth sports talk that you could find on this station over the course of this program. For goodness sakes, just go track back to the top of the hour, which you can do, by the way.
Rewind app.
With the Odyssey Rewind feature.
YouTube at Archives. I'm currently working on posting the shows. Many ways to do this.
So check that out. We made a trade. We evaluated several potential free agents for San Diego. We talked through Josh Hader at length. We gave you Braden's football segment, in-depth football talk, the 12 o'clock sports fix. I'm all sportsed out. It's time. It's time for Ask Us Anything. So I'm a brave fella. It's Friday. So if you want to dial in 833-288-0973, we'll take you. 833-288-0973. If you do call in, ask a question, please. No pontificating or pontification. Ask us a question. That's the whole idea. Elisa has a question. Does Braden's show start this weekend?
It does. It won't be on Sunday, though. It'll be tomorrow from 11 to 1. Got to, a lot of, it's so hard. Like, you understand this with programming. You got to get into a rhythm of being the same spot all the time. And to start the show where we got to bounce around a little bit until after the Super Bowl is over. But tomorrow from 11 to 1, we'll have some local sports talk on the airwaves here in San Diego.
Here's another question. What's your in and out order?
That's a good one.
A simple answer. Would you like me to go first? Mine is
absolutely
every single time. We're going to get the cheeseburger, grilled onions, add mustard.
I might have to start doing that because I like mustard and I didn't even realize I could do that, even though I don't know why I wouldn't realize that, but that's a good call right there.
Now, when you get the fries, you got to ask for the fries well done.
A little crispy.
Because let's be honest, it's fresh potatoes, but the one thing about In-N-Out, they don't usually get super crispy.
Right.
The fries. They can be a little bit soggy, a little bit mashy, but when you ask for them well done, which is part of the secret menu, then they put them in a second time, or you can say medium well done, and they'll put them in a second time for half the time, so it won't get as oily, but you get a little bit of extra crunch there. And to me, that completely takes the fry to a separate level. Usually I said burger, fry, shake is, more toward the burger. However, get that medium well done on the fry, and you're all set. That's mine.
I'm going to have to try that a couple of times. I do like having, I usually get a double. Sometimes I'm really hungry. I get a 3x3. I haven't downed a 4x4 since I was in high school. I don't need all those extra calories unless I'm, again, super hungry. I do like doing it protein style every once in a while. I do like mixing that up, get rid of the bun. Not for health reasons. I actually just think it tastes better sometimes. But my go-to simple In-N-Out double with cheese. Don't need the tomato or the lettuce. It just makes the burger slide around. I prefer raw onions over grilled onions personally. So that's what I'll do. I haven't done the crispy double fry the fries. That's a good call. I might have to do that mixing forward. And then, it's either Dr. Pepper. Sometimes I mix in the strawberry lemonade. And, when I really just want to have like the full In-N-Out experience, I'll get a strawberry shake.
Got to get the strawberry shake.
Out of all the shakes there, I think the strawberry is the best. I'm a sucker for Oreo shakes in general. They don't have that. Obviously, they're very simple. So I go with the strawberry one. Favorite shake, though, of all time is still at Beef and Bun. The peanut butter Oreo shake. It's a pretty money choice.
Oh, my gosh. I was just going to say peanut butter chocolate, peanut butter banana, chocolate banana,
so
all
good.
Available at Beef and Bun, all incredible. Literally down the street from my house, down the street and around the corner. I'm not going to let you figure out where I am. Not so close. All right, 2 great orders there. San Diego Punto Football asked us a question in the chat yesterday, and I jotted it down, Braden, because I thought it was a great question. Talking about the sports arena, Pechanga Arena, Valley View Casino Center, iPay1 Center, whatever name you want to put.
San Diego Sports Arena, so many names. It's
all
like,
the way back.
Like the amphitheater down in Chula Vista.
What is your favorite arena, either sporting event or concert, that you have attended at Pechanga Arena?
What was it? Can you repeat the question?
At Pechanga Arena, your favorite
event?
either game, sporting event, or could be a concert too.
That's kind of hard. I mean, I used to go to like a lot of those like things on ice when I was a kid a long time ago, but then there was like a lot of lull of going down to the arena because a lot of events moved to Viejas and what have you. But I do like going to watch the Gulls play at the arena, but probably this most recent time, being able to see Blink-182 tour with all the whole crew back together. Tom was part of it. That was a pretty cool experience. It was cool to see them, talk about San Diego in between sets and everything. And that was probably my favorite event that I've attended, at least off the top of my head, at the San Diego Sports Arena.
For favorite concert, I'll go all the way back to, I think it was my sophomore year in college. I know it was my sophomore year in college for the U2 Zoo TV tour, which went to the Sports Arena. At that point, they would still go to Sports Arena sized, 15,000 seat sized arenas. Now, of course, U2 has their own sphere in Las Vegas for residency. My wife and I saw them at the Rose Bowl play through Joshua Tree. I think that was in 2018. That was a great concert as well. The Killers Exploiting the Magic Tour, I was there. That was a great concert as well. Favorite sporting event I've been to at the arena. Now, that's easy because I have had the pleasure and privilege of announcing 2 San Diego Soccer's championships at the Sports Arena, 2013 and again 2022. And naturally, Braden, that's a lifelong memory because it's not just the game, it's announcing the game. It's being part of the team.
Being a part of something at the arena. There's sentimental value with that, of course.
Celebrating with the team after the game, being down in 2022 in the confetti. My wife and my son and I holding the cup in the confetti on the floor of the arena. That's the kind of memory you'll never let go. But I see we got a minute left. This is perfect. The most memorable sporting game I've ever been to at the Sports Arena was 2015, the San Diego Gulls' first ever AHL game against Bakersfield. Completely full house. And Braden, they had not installed the proper refrigeration at Pechanga Arena for the new hockey team.
It's been a while.
The arena director from Anaheim, I'll never forget this. He came down about 4:30 for the 7:00 game, walked in the tunnel, met the building manager at the arena. Hi, I'm so. How warm is your building right now? There wasn't hi, hello. How warm is your building right now?
He noted. He was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And he's like, 74. He goes, you're screwed. The ice was melting, Braden. There was a fog. God. There was a persistent fog in the arena so thick that the players for both teams would come out every time out and skate in circles in the offensive zone to act as a windmill to propel the fog up into the rafters of the arena. It was completely nuts.
That's insane.
That's how we finish Andy and Elsten. Quinn and Chris are next on The Fan.